Good evening and welcome to the Federal Way City Council meeting, the last of the year for December 5th of 2023. We're going to have everybody rise. We're going to have Boy Scout Local 361 deliver the colors and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Color guard, forward march. Color guard, halt. Color guard, prepare to post the colors. Color guard, post the colors. Will the audience please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Color guard, return to ranks.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen, from the 361. Appreciate it. It's always great to see our Boy Scouts in action. And we have a former Eagle Scout here on the end, a former Decatur High School graduate, and also Jack Walsh. We've got two Eagle Scouts at the end of the dais. So
Yeah, you're never former Eagle Scouts. Once an Eagle Scout, always an Eagle Scout.
That's what I like to hear. Thank you very much. You were
Stole that
prepared.
from the Marine Corps.
Very good. Thank you. All right, and thank you, gentlemen, and your leaders for delivery of the colors today and the raising of the flag.
So, Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to move to amend the agenda to add the item authorization to apply for King County Shelter Grant as 7I to council business.
Second.
I've been a motion, a second to amend the agenda to add the aforementioned item. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the item has passed, and we will discuss that later in the agenda. All right, now we are on to Mayor's Emerging Issues and Report. All right. Thank you, Kobe, and thank you, Bill. All right, so as you can see from the slide, we've got the 2024 Legislative Priorities Breakfast. That will be, oh yeah, we've got something blocking there. Okay. I think we still need to hit escape or something.
Recording in progress.
Okay. All right, so we've got the legislative agenda for our, the legislative agenda for the City Council of Federal Way, for the City of Federal Way, was passed at our last meeting. Our meeting on Monday, December 18th at 7:30 a.m. Over at the Community Center is with our legislators to discuss our priorities and to hear what our legislators, our two House members and our senator says about what we're up to and what we hope to is accomplished in the state legislative session. This is a short year, a 60-day session, so they should be, they start in the first week or two of January. They'll go through the first week or two of March, and they alternate every other year. After election years, they've got the 105-day legislative session, and then following non-election years, they have the short session. So this is a short session for them. We'll have a presentation by myself and the members of the City Council, and then we certainly want to hear what our legislators have to say and what their priorities are. So everyone is welcome. There'll be refreshments there. Again, doors open at 7:30. We'll probably get started at 8 a.m. and go to 9. And I would encourage people to get there, no later than 8 a.m. To be able to participate. All right, let's move on to the next item. All right, these are the recent community events. As you can see, that's the tree lighting that we had last Saturday. It was absolutely beautiful. John, congratulations and thank you to you and your crew. They did a fantastic job.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, and I will pass that along to them. I appreciate it.
Very good. I asked for a few kids to help me lift the, the turn on light switch on. And I was astounded by how many kids actually converged on the light. And as you could see there in the second picture there, I had to reach over, and just a lot of kids having fun. And I think it's the most people we've ever had at Town Square Park for the tree lighting. There's a tremendous, there were performances, Sherwood Forest Elementary, Jet City's Chorus, what else? Some other, what's that?
The dance group.
Oh, yes, the dance group. That was just absolutely fantastic. So, and we got the tree lighted, so thank you, John. And it's continuously on, so you can go there anytime and in the evening and take a look at it. EJ, I'd like to thank you and your crew for the decorations around town. The snowflakes and the lights around town look beautiful. Earlier in the day on Saturday, we had the Jingle Bell Brunch at the Federal Way Community Center on December 2nd. So, John, once again, thank you to you and your crew. At the PAC on November 25th, we showed the movie Jack Frost. And we had, let's see here, I think that's, like we said, we had the tree lighting, Jingle Bell Brunch. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Upcoming community events, Cookies with Mrs. Claus. That is Thursday, December 14th at 5:30 p.m. Next. We do not have a second meeting in December. We've traditionally, over the course of the past 20 years, have not had a second meeting in December for the holiday. We've now, the council has codified that into their city council rules and laws. And so we'll also be closed in observance of the holidays on Monday, December 25th, obviously, and the first day of the year on the 1st. In next year, we've got the City Council retreat at Dumas Bay on Saturday, February 3rd. And no, that's not the Super Bowl weekend, I checked. It's the next weekend. Yeah, you never know. The Seahawks could get lucky in the next couple of weeks. Earlier today, below you see the picture we had a virtual visit with the mayor of Hachinoa, our sister city in Japan, and Mayor Kumage and I and several other members of staff exchanged, some very heartfelt thanks for the visit we had earlier this year, and they just did a really great job for us and touring us around. And you may recall that I got COVID when I was over there, and I got the benefit of staying behind in a special arrangements in a hotel for about 5 days. But when I got out, they showed me around town and made sure I got on the train to get out of town, and sent me back to Tokyo. So it was great to meet with the mayor and key members of his staff. And then yesterday we met with the Japanese Consul General Makoto Iori. He is the Consul General for Japan for this area, for the Seattle area, and he came down here for a very special visit. It was just a quick visit, but to check in, and we talked about things. We've got our King County Councilman Pete Von Reichbauer that's present. Pete, are you in the room? Can I see your hand? Thank you, Pete, for the work you do at the King County Council. And very wisely, our King County Council member likes to say that the last century was marked by the special relationship between the United States and Great Britain and our European friends. The next century will be marked by the relationships by a Pacific century and our friends and allies in the Pacific Theater. And we have a very special relationship with the South Korean government and also with our friends in Japan. So it was great to see them as well. Okay, we've got emerging issues. I've talked to several council members about this, and we've got serious concerns about pedestrian safety in Federal Way. Last week, we had a high school student that was struck by a car in front of Federal Way High School. This is the second individual that's been struck just this year. The first happened in May, and it was a school bus that was turning off of 304th to go northbound on Pacific Highway, and the sun was in the eyes, and it wasn't necessarily a speed issue. The second occurred last week, and the high school student was severely injured, and our thoughts and prayers go out to that student. And I was actually talking with our Public Works Director. I've talked with the Deputy Mayor about this issue, who's in contact with some students at Federal Way High School, and I actually spoke earlier today. I spoke with Dr. Danny Pfeiffer, the superintendent of the Federal Way Schools, and there are some ideas that are going around about how to address this. This is a state highway, so we can't just unilaterally change the speed or make it a school zone, in regard to traffic enforcement. So we're looking at all the possible options. One of the things we may do at that location is really what's done at all of the elementaries in our community, at some high schools, which are crossing guards. It's such a fast roadway in front of Federal Way High School at Pacific Highway. So we're going through a process in which we're going to be looking at our options and what are some viable options. But we also need to make sure that we're on a public education campaign with our young students, especially when it's so dark outside, and making sure that these young people are not looking at their phones, or whatever age, people are not looking at their phones when they're crossing the street, or they're really watching the directions from the crosswalks, because at the speeds involved at this road and near our other schools, it's very difficult at certain hours of the day. This occurred right before 7 a.m. I think it was about 6:53 in the morning. I just watched the video again today. And so, Dr. Pfeiffer, her team, our team, and the council is committed to making sure that all of our young scholars are safe, and that we're doing everything we can. Okay, and then, and we also have a school board member elect, newly elected, Joan Marie Murphy, who's present as well. So thank you very much for joining us. Okay, and with that, that is my report. And why don't we move on to the most important part of the evening, which is public comment. And everybody knows they've got 3 minutes, unless you're speaking on behalf of 5 people that are present. Everybody knows the rules. Now, green means go. Yellow means you've got about 30 seconds. Red means please stop. I hate interrupting people. Council has asked that people identify what community they live in. We don't need your address. With that, what I'll do is I'll read off a few names and ask people to sort of queue up there. And the rules have been placed on that, so we don't need to belabor the issue in regard to public comment rules. All right, so I'll read off a couple of names, and if you could sort of queue up in the back. We've got Owen Russell, and then Susan Strong, Trinice Rogers, Keena Smith, Mary Ellis, Mark Christie, Mary Gates, George Bannon, Laura Leah Jackson, and that's what I've got so far. So Owen Russell.
Hello. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. We'd first like to thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. As we know, you have a busy schedule, so we will be brief. My name is Owen Russell. I'm here to speak tonight on behalf of 4 BSA Scout troops located here in the Federal Way area about the upcoming event that we're participating in. One that we're trying to turn an annual event to both benefit our community and our environment. Last January, we held our very first Christmas tree recycling event at Celebration Park with the help of the City of Federal Way and BSA Troops 330, 307, and 361. We were able to collect and dispose of Christmas trees from our community through both a drop-off service at the park and also a pickup program around Federal Way with help of our adult volunteers. We're excited to let the council know that we'll be offering the service again this coming January with partners at the city and Rainier Tree Recyclers. The date of this event will be Saturday, January 6th. We're providing both drop-off service at Celebration Park as well as pickup for those who sign up ahead of time by emailing scoutingfortrees.fw@gmail.com or by scanning the QR code on the flyer. We have some. Additionally, we are offering Christmas tree light recycling option for those who have excess or broken strings that would like to keep it out of landfill. We have flyers on hand to pass out this evening, and we'll be posting information through the city's social media accounts. There will also be additional marketing through local newspapers. Thank you so much for your time this evening. We are happy to answer any questions you might have. We hope to see anyone that's able to go to the event in January.
Thank you, Owen. Great job. Susan Strong.
Mayor Farrell, Deputy Mayor Honda, Council President Kochmar, and council members. I'm Susan Strong, and I'm from Federal Way. My comments are going to be about the pros and cons of the Federal Way Day Center operated by the Catholic Community Services. This nonprofit operates Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. They provide social and emotional connections, showers, laundry, computers, phones, mail service, and meal preparation, along with a medical van, which comes once a month. Recently, the Day Center has been instrumental in placing one of their clients into an over 62 years of age, low-income facility. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, you told us about that last meeting. This client used to live in the Day Center parking lot under an umbrella. Those of us who have been working with this same client are thrilled that she's finally in a warm and dry place of her own. The problem with the Day Center is it attracts problem people who hang around the parking lot and sidewalks, leaving a mess everywhere. Sometimes the Day Center dumpster is full to overflowing. Several times I have gone to the Day Center to talk to them or deliver something and have found myself almost afraid to get out of the car. The problem people are spread all over the place and are intimidating to someone of my age and size. I don't know what the answer is, but here is the question. How do we help the homeless while maintaining a safe city for the rest of us? And how do we stop growing the homeless population? And I still don't know how we serve the severely mentally ill population who are living on our streets. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Susan. Trinice Rogers.
Good evening, Mayor Farrell, Council. I want to respond to this previous, or just add on to that previous comment. How do we avoid from growing this homeless community here in Federal Way? And I can just say the rent, this rental situation is out of hand. So that's something I can offer in terms of that concern. Moving on to my comment. Thank you for mentioning the young lady related to Federal Way High School, that incident. You and I were at Federal Way Memorial Stadium not long ago celebrating the grand opening, and she was one of the scholars, one of the 4 scholars who spoke at that event. And I personally watched her grow and develop over the years as an amazing athlete. I would like to offer an opportunity for a senior project or youth in government. I heard someone speak earlier regarding possible efforts as to how do we handle this situation. I did my assessment in the community. I noticed all the elementary schools, of course, all the middle schools, they have, accommodations in place for, protection and crossing, especially during school hours. I would love to see an opportunity where we can engage the youth in empowering them and really combating this issue or just addressing this issue really as they're supporting their fellow classmate. Thank you for interviewing the diversity commissioners here earlier today. We much appreciate it. I just want to just briefly share one adverse effect of not having a full diversity commission is one thing that was not mentioned today. I know you guys are really curious and asking questions. One of the recent adverse effects of not having a full commission is minimizing or downsizing subcommittees, right? When we don't have voting members, they cannot, or when our numbers are low, that means the quorum, right, decreases, right? And so in the effort of planning this MLK event, the citywide MLK event, we had to go from 4 commissioners and downsize to 3 mid-effort. So we're presenting the agenda to Mayor Farrell tomorrow, and that was done with 3 individuals, in addition to our amazing DI analysts. So as you're thinking, how are we adversely affected? That's just one example. I spoke briefly with Deputy Mayor Honda just prior to this meeting, and I was just sharing this concerning and deeply troubled visual we have here in Federal Way, the Rite Aid. There's rocks. There's a rock statue platform in there. It's very dangerous. I imagine it was to deter homeless from standing there sitting, but I have pictures. They're visibly sitting on these rocks. Not only is it a really harsh visual image, but it's also a safety hazard. I'm concerned. I would like to know, because Deputy Honda, she's not aware who's responsible for those, how much it costs. She has no knowledge of it. And I would like to know who's responsible for those rocks and how much it costs. And with that, I would like to end my comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, Keena Smith.
Hi, I'm Tina Smith. Thank you, council, for letting me talk, give me the time to talk to you. I'm a part of Contagious Christian. We're an outreach where we help the homeless. There's just a big problem with the homeless because they're getting kicked out and shunned from everywhere. Most of the housing opportunities for like shelters and stuff are overpacked. The waiting list is so long. My daughter is also on the waiting list for housing. She actually stays with me right now, but if I wasn't alive, she would be on the streets with 2 children. And she has a job. She works for Delta. A lot of people are 1 paycheck away from being homeless. A lot in this community. I've talked to a lot of people. I do Contagious Christians every Saturday, so I'm out on the streets with the homeless, talking to them and listening to their stories. A lot of them some of them are drug addicts, but some of the families are not. Some of them have children. Some of them are ready to break the law just to get a hotel room or somewhere. They're so exhausted from wandering around night after night without a place to sleep. We need to do better as a community to make sure that we have opportunities for these people to sleep, whether it's campgrounds, schools, community centers, places that they can actually stay at. This is one of the things that I give out in my Contagious Christian, because I go to different spots. I go to Seattle, Federal Way, and Tacoma. And this is an emergency shelter kit, and this is made out of Mylar. It holds in 90% of the body heat, so when the temperatures drop to freezing levels, they will survive without dying from hypothermia. So I think that we should do better as a community to make sure that these people don't die on the streets from hypothermia. Okay? And that's everything I have to say, and thank you guys so much.
Thank you very much. Mary Ellis.
Well, hello again. I was here last month to tell you we postponed our holiday open house, but we are going to have at the Heritage Center, which is the Federal Way Historical Society of Federal Way over at Steel Lake Annex. We're having a holiday open house on actually the 16th of December, and it's between 1 and 3. And do please come over, see what we've done at the Heritage Center. We want to hear your stories. We want to know more about, well, we're celebrating the 60s, I should tell you that. Turbulent time, but that's one reason we had to postpone. We were finding more information than we could deal with. But we're going to turn it into a fun evening. We'd like to introduce ourselves to you, and so pick up a card, and it has the information on it, and come join us at our holiday open house, Federal Way Historical Society at the Heritage Center, which is at Steel Lake Park Annex. So thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Mark Christie.
Just let me say, good evening, my fellow free speech people. You're probably aware of a certain other city agency that doesn't exactly do the transparency and open meetings rules like we'd like them to do. It's been a bit of a problem for us. Some good news I can report to you about the other city agency there. They have Joan Murphy on there now on the board. But Director Morris would probably have a much easier time trying to get him to do more of the transparency and open meeting laws. And also, I think they have the idea of making it a lot less ideological. So good news. And I'm telling you what brings me here tonight. What I think we need to do is an end run. We can't count on the people in the other agency over there, the school board, to get into the transparency and open meeting laws anytime in the near future, so I'm going to do kind of an end run. Jeffrey Tancredi just recently in case you're not familiar with his experience, I'm sure you are, he's the person who keeps telling them every meeting, would you mind obeying the transparency and open meeting laws? He tells them that over and over and over. It finally got to the point where he just said, would you make a note about why you're not complying with these laws? And not surprisingly, after ignoring all the open meetings and transparency rules, they also ignored his note. Just in case you didn't figure it, they ignored his note too, about just answering why they're not following the rules. So I've come to the point where we need to come at it in a different way, a bit of an end run around. I've talked about it with other people, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to continue to go over the Federal Way School Board meetings. I'll make my remarks, and we make them politely, calmly. We don't have any high drama. It'll be done when the room is empty and when the public won't be able to hear it, because that's their rules. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the exact same remarks I make over there, and I'm going to bring them over here, where there is television, where the public will hear about it, where they'll finally start getting to decide for themselves what the issues are about. So that's what you call an end run. They have empty rooms over there and no public. You do it there, and you also bring it over to another venue where you do have it. That's an end run around. So let us know if you how you feel about that. I hate to use your room for an end run around another room that's supposed to act better, but sometimes you deal with what you got to deal with. So that I leave with you tonight. And if you can get him to respond to Jeffrey Tancredi, or at least even get him to respond to that note he wrote to him, I would appreciate that too. I mean, if you ever talk to him, tell him to at least respond to the man's note he asked him to write to him, if you can get him to do that much. So thank you very much, everybody, and I hope we won't be too much trouble. Thanks again.
Thank you. Okay, Mary Gates.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Deputy Mayor Honda and Council President Kochmar. I am here speaking on behalf of the Arts Foundation Federal Way, but I also wanted to say congratulations to all of you who have been certified as elected. That's pretty exciting. And I also need to point out that I've got an Eagle Scout son because I'm a female, so I didn't have that option. But I do want to tell you a little bit about the Arts Foundation. First of all, who are the Arts Foundation? We actually have had a number of names through the years, but since 2017, with the building of the PAC, we have really been part of the Performing Arts Foundation. And we changed our name this year to Arts Foundation Federal Way when we discovered that we can do a lot more in the PAC than just performing arts. We can do visual arts. We can do all kinds of things that we never thought possible. It takes a while, but COVID did slow us down a bit. Who are we? I'm president this year. Jean Burbidge is vice president. Cindy Panette is treasurer. Jeffrey Stewart is the new secretary for 2024, replacing Sherry Song, who has been with us since 2017 as a secretary. Can you imagine being a secretary that long in a volunteer organization? We have Paul Ishii, Caroline Vadino, Kathy Franklin, and Phil Wamba as part of our board. It's a powerful board, but it's not big, so you need to be aware of that. The new mission for us, because we changed our name and recognize that we can do more, is to advance and enrich the arts to build a creative, inclusive, and equitable community. And we have, of course, been very successful starting back up with the last performances. Some of you have these. I hope that they were handed out. And they say our new name, but they're also a gift I always try to give to our council, thanking them for the service that you provide. And it is what we handed out at the performance of Jack Frost on the 25th of Thanksgiving weekend. That was free movie for families and young people. Arts for Youth is we have over 1,000 students who've already been served this fall. And we will proceed with 7 more performances into 2024. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, George Bannon.
Good evening. My name is George. I live in Federal Way, and my passion is the homeless. I feed them 2 or 3 times a week. And we got to do something. We got to do something different than what we're doing. We got to be brave and courageous. Be the first one to do something in a city that helps them, not to push them out into the woods more and more. The woods you're cutting down so they can't even live in the woods. They can't get under a corner any place because security's chasing them away. My gosh, let them get out of the rain at least. You know, somebody said we're all one paycheck away from maybe being one of those people. And by the grace of God, I hope that none of your family members are ever in that position that you are homeless. Because if you didn't know where you were going to lay your head, maybe you would turn to drugs and alcohol yourselves. You know, so we got to do something like the Jagged Rocks over there. It was a flat little place where people sat and held up a sign. And you come in or you go out of the Rite Aid, and either you gave them a sandwich or you gave them $1 or not. So it took the city, one of the homeless guys told me he watched the people work on it to put the Jagged Rocks. Well, I'm here to tell you, if you see a board with a cushion on it, I made that board and that cushion so they can sit down comfortable and get maybe a meal or $1 or $2. So we got to do something. We really, I don't know what the solution is, but if we're given money after money after money to do something with the homeless, let's do something. And defund the police. Come on, we need more police to help this situation. We all got to use our heads and have some compassion in your hearts. My God, they're human beings. They're not animals. And that's all I got to say.
All right, thank you. All right, Jeffrey Tancredi. And while he is making his way up there, Laura Lee Jackson, did you want to make your comments at this time or when we've got the ordinance for first reading? What's that?
This time.
Okay, great. All right, Jeffrey.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor Honda, Council President Kochmar, and City Council. Good evening. I've been listening, Jeff Tancredi, by the way, Federal Way resident since 1997. I've been listening to different comments from everyone. I appreciate what everybody has said. I joined a volunteer group called Stand Up Federal Way about 2.5 years ago. Somebody came into my neighborhood because they were concerned about what was the direction of our city. And some of us had gone out into the encampments. We had many encampments. Some of them you had to be armed to go in there. It was that bad. 304th and Pacific, to be exact. And members of Stand Up came to the council, the prior council, in the spring and the summer of 2021. Based on what we saw, we went into the woods, we went into the encampments, and we talked to those folks. And we found out, what we found out from our experience by going in there and talking to them, is that they were homeless drug addicts. These are folks, now there may be some folks that are missing a paycheck, but what we found, what our not investigation, but by going in and talking to them, was that these were homeless drug addicts who do not want to be integrated into society. They just want to be left alone. The problem is they were trespassing. And we said, hey, you're trespassing, but worse than that, you need help. You need to be into a situation, a facility where you can get treatment. That's the answer for these folks, the ones that are drug addicts. And our experience, I can only tell you what the experience of Stand Up was, is that 99% of these folks are homeless drug addicts. They choose to be homeless, but they're drug addicts. They need help. They need to be into a treatment facility, not being enabled by giving them a needle or giving them something like that. They need to be in a treatment facility, either that or in jail. Otherwise, you're trespassing. You're on somebody else's property, okay? So that is the problem that we have. We have homeless drug addicts. I've been up and down Pack Highway several times talking to all of those business owners. Up and down Pack Highway talking to all the business owners. And every one of them, many of them told me, these homeless drug addicts are defecating and urinating on their property. They're hanging out in the woods. They're stealing. They're robbing them. Okay? And many of these businesses are of Asian heritage. And they don't like to be confrontational because that's part of their culture. I know because I've been stationed in South Korea twice. Okay? So many of these business owners, they don't want to be confrontational. So it's almost as if they're being taken advantage of. Those businesses along Pack Highway, that's a crown jewel of Federal Way. And we need to treat it as the crown jewel. Instead, we allow the homeless drug addicts to go there. But we won't allow it in our neighborhood where we sleep, will we? No. Well, then let's not allow it on Pack Highway either. Let's not allow it on the streets. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Laura Lee Jackson.
Why me? I'm an old lady, 63 years old. Hi, my name's Laura Leah Jackson. I've been living in Federal Way for 1 year and 8 months. Today, 31701 Pete Bond Richborough Way South, apartment 204, Federal Way, Washington 98003. Every day, all day, 24 hours a day, I've been on a 24-hour surveillance, monitoring, and GPS on my car. When I reach out to the community or to the public resources and businesses, artificial intellectual, artificial intelligence, and artificial properties. I'm a targeted individual, but mine is a personal targeted individual. My housing is always also in jeopardy. To be a targeted individual means to cope with invisible and excruciating induced pain, physical pain, no-touch torture, as well as to experience extreme social isolation because no one wants to stretch their minds to understand that hurting a person from afar is possible. We targeted individuals undergo the most. Why won't the whole public servants here in the state of Washington help me? Once I tell 911 my name, Laura Jackson, and my address, the 911 lady says, okay, I will let them know. I will never hear back from any police department. I request 10 police records. I paid $55 for all of these police records. And it had on the records were very negative. The accusations that were made about Laura Jackson and welfare checks was on all of them, and accusations that did not happen. But I did not report it because it was irrelevant and did not make any sense. Evidently, it made sense to the Federal Way Police Department because it was reported with my phone number, emails. Please, all I want is my situation to be investigated. Because of this, I have no life or privacy, HIPAA, and no medical insurance. They took that away from me. My human rights have been taken away from me, my civil rights, and thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Okay, are there individuals online?
We do currently have 3 hands raised of people that did not sign up, but their hands are raised.
All right, would you have them identify themselves?
Sure. First speaker is Jupiter Andre. Thomas can unmute them.
Hello?
Hi, we can hear you.
me? Okay, my name is Jupiter Andre, and I would like to bring some things to this council that I've noticed that's going on in our city. Now, there's a lot of excess litter that's going on, and I've seen people driving by, and they will yell at people out of their cars and try to sell people drugs that are just trying to go on a jog, and then they're littering and they're spitting on people. And I also wanted to bring to the attention that there's a bad problem with the litter, and the people that are abusing animals. So what happens is that during a certain time of year, there is a celebration that happens for some type of religious group where what they're doing is they're have the chickens, they have live chickens, and they're flinging them around their heads while they're reading from scripture. The scripture is called the Talmud, which also says some very bad things about people that aren't in the religious group. But what they do is they mutilate these chickens, and they don't eat the chickens. They leave them there in trash bags, and they just leave them in the streets. And this practice is called kapara, and it is spelled Kapparot, and I think it has been brought to the attention of PETA, the protection agency for the ethical treatment of animals. And I would like for this council to pass a resolution that this practice of kapparot, which is done predominantly during Yom Kippur, which is a religious so-called celebration, but I think it's very barbaric and that we have no need for that in a civilized society. I would like our council to pass a resolution that says that the practice of being cruel to animals in this way and leaving them on the street in trash bags for others to clean up should be abolished. I understand in our Constitution that we have the right to practice freedom of speech and religion and the press, but when it comes to barbarity, there needs to be some kind of laws in place that says that they are not allowed to do this. Because what they also do, I found out, is that they mutilate little children's genitals from the young age that they're born. And then what they do is, and you can look this up on nyc.gov if you look up oral suction, what the rabbi does is he puts his mouth on the baby's genitals and sucks blood off of it.
All right.
And babies have died from herpes because of
All
this.
right, Jupiter,
I just think this is barbaric, and we should have no for this in our society.
Okay.
If we want
I don't know how. Okay, thank you, Jupiter. All right, next.
to be a
What's that? Okay. All right, let's see who's next.
Next name is Judy Stroyer.
Hello?
Hello, hope you can hear me there. How you doing?
We're good.
We're gonna, okay, that's great. I'd like to talk a little bit about free speech, seeing that this is one of the only places left in America where you're supposed to have free speech at these public forums. But unfortunately, I've learned through info requests with various city councils that the Anti-Defamation League is delivering coaching and notes on how to shut down free speech. So we got this group that's run by a 2% minority in our country that has no allegiance to this country at all. And in fact, they pit the whole world against us, and they hate us, and they want to suffocate the white race. But we let them run our media, we let them run our banks.
I'm gonna interrupt you, sir. We're not gonna allow that. We're not. Do you have a relevant comment? We're not gonna get into religion. Okay. All right, next comment.
Next person with their hand up is William Cooper.
Yeah, good evening, City Council. Can you hear me all right?
We can.
Okay, great. I'm actually kind of disappointed in what just developed. The First Amendment, I thought, was the law of the land. And actually, what I found, I'm actually kind of I'm kind of a bit of a expert on the topic of Yom Kippur, and I want to talk about that a little bit more, but it seems like you're not open to having an open forum here tonight. Am I correct in that assessment?
Just speak your piece, sir. What do you got?
Okay, well, I got that. I'm pretty tired of everybody catering to the minorities of this country when this place was built for white men. And if there's any white men out there in the crowd right now,
I'm gonna interrupt you. Mute his comment. Mute his comment. All right, your comment's done. Turn it off. Next. That's it? All right.
yeah.
We don't allow comments that relate to negatively refer to anyone's national origin, all kinds of classifications, but that's just divisive speech. We don't allow it. Okay, that's what we've got for public comment. Yes?
We have 4 more hands raised.
4 more hands.
4 or 5, yeah.
So, to be clear, our standard procedure is that you're supposed to sign up before the meeting.
Okay.
So that we can avoid this exact scenario.
All right.
So we've been lenient with that in the past because no one's abused it. But
Yeah.
if people are going to start doing this, we're going to have to stick to our rules.
Then those are the rules. Thank you very much. All right, I don't have any more pink sheets. I do want to follow up on a couple of items. Trinice Rogers asked about an issue that we've had quite a problem with, about people obstructing traffic and begging in the public right-of-way immediately adjacent to private property, but standing literally between where cars are coming and going. EJ, would you do me a favor? Would you please follow up with Ms. Trinice Rogers? And the response that you send her, would you please then forward to the city council so they could see that entire response?
Sure.
Okay. It's a longstanding issue we've had of literally people blocking traffic and standing in an area. There's been quite a lot of work in regard to how to address what has been a safety issue. Okay, and also, Keena Smith, thank you so much for your comments. I want to let you know that when it got really cold last week, and even though our protocols for the activation of emergency shelter were not actually reached, I was actually at an event and I ran into the executive director of Fusion. His name is David Harrison, and I said, let's activate the emergency overnight shelter. And I'd heard from several council members as well. Normally, what we have in order to activate the emergency overnight shelter, we need the guideline and the protocol say that it has to be freezing for 24 hours or more. But it was just as I was on my way to that event, it was 28 degrees in the morning, and it was only getting up to the high 30s that day. And so we activated emergency overnight shelter. They activated for 2 nights, and that was Wednesday night and Thursday night of last week. Fusion is the homeless shelter, the family center that they have right just south of where the post office is, and they absolutely responded. I think the second night we had up to 14 individuals there. I think the first night when we were kind of trying to getting the word out, and we got it out to all of our partners and all of the service agencies and the human services community, I think we had 8 or 9 people that first night. So when we hit, really low temperatures, regardless of the exact protocols, we're going to make sure that we do that. We also opened our community center as a warming shelter. But thank you so much, Keena, for thinking of thinking of the less fortunate, and as many of you are. We've got such a generous community. The individual who talked about homelessness, thank you, sir. We've got a really generous community and thinking about all those things, so thank you. All right, that concludes public comment. Thank you, council. Yes?
I did want to know, we did have 3 written comments that came in, were sent to the council before the meeting, from Ronald Whitehurst and Brett Thomas speaking against the Wild Waves ordinance, and 1 comment from Ann Gigi in favor of Wild Waves.
Okay. And I should clarify, we did not allow those public comments because they're essentially hate speech. And we do not allow hate speech in this, and that is not a protected speech. Okay, now let's move on to item 5, council, community, and regional committee reports. And we'll go right through the committee chair individuals. Park, Recreation, Human Services, and Public Safety. That is our very own Eagle Scout, and still an Eagle Scout, Councilmember Walsh.
All right. Nothing to report. We've not had a meeting since our last council meeting. Our next Parks, Recreation, Human Services, and Public Safety Committee will be January 9th at 5 o'clock right here. We look forward to seeing a lot of you there.
All right, thank you. And our second Eagle Scout, Land Use and Transportation Committee member, Councilmember Jack Doby.
Thank you, Mayor. Our next meeting is going to be January 8th, so you can plan for 2024. And we had our meeting yesterday, and we'll see some things coming up on the agenda the first part of January. And I must thank past Mayor Mary Gates for the candy canes. This is not land use, but I thought the tradition was somebody comes by and you break them. Don't you remember Santa Claus used to come all the time when we were up here back a long time ago? Anyway, but thank you for the candy cane. Appreciate it.
All right, consider mine broken. All right, thank you. Finance, Economic Development, Regional Affairs Committee, Councilmember Tran.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our committee met last Tuesday, and we approved and forwarded 10 items on the consent agenda for you to approve tonight. We also forwarded one item to the business agenda, is ARPA business-related funding. So that is going to be discussed later on in the program. Just a reminder that in December, we don't have the meeting, so our next meeting will be on January 23rd at 5 p.m. In this chamber. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, Councilmember Asefa Dawson.
Okay, we do not have a meeting this month, and our next scheduled meeting is for January 10th. And I think with that, I conclude my report.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. For those who are newly elected, or actually anyone sitting here, the Elected Officials Essentials class is this Saturday. You can take it online, or you can go to Olympia to take it. But you can earn 5 credits for your Certificate of Municipal Leadership if you take the class, and it is recommended that everyone take the class even if you've been on council for 12 or 8 years. You can always learn something. So Amy can register you if you're interested. I took a class on Jurassic Parliament last week. Ann McFarland and SCA sponsored it, and learned a few more things about parliamentary procedure. And on Friday, we met with some members of the Edmonds City Council and Edmonds City staff because they have an opportunity to buy 10 acres of property up in Edmonds and do something similar to what we're doing in downtown Federal Way. And they wanted to look at what we've done, and staff did a great job of presenting the history of what has been happening in Federal Way. And so I hope that they learned what they needed to learn. I know they were visiting 2 other cities that day too. The PIC meeting is next Wednesday. It's online, so anyone can attend. We're going to be talking about regional board and committee appointments, the SCA legislative priorities, King County climate change funding proposal, the King County Doors Open Cultural Access Sales Tax, and potential levies and ballot measures. So that is from 7 to 9 next Wednesday, December 13th. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Council President.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I was honored to be asked to represent the city of Federal Way at the Federal Way Youth Symphony. That's the Korean Youth Symphony last Sunday at the Performing Arts Center. They're excellent group of young folks that very, very wonderful at performing. And I presented some awards to those young folks who are doing a lot of volunteer work in our community. Both Mayor and I will be judging some presentations from DECA at Decatur High School. That's coming up next Friday. December 12th, I'll be at the Grouse Point Homeowners Association to talk about public safety, and our Chief Andy Wong said it was very wonderful about saying that he'd try to get somebody to go with me to talk about what we're doing in regards to public safety. And I would like to remind you that the Poverty Bay will be having an open house from 3 to 5 next Saturday, December 9th. It'll be in conjunction with Fusion Housing. So to support the people in our community that are being supported by Fusion, that's women who are escaping abusive situations, come to the open house at Poverty Bay Coffee Shop next Saturday from 3 to 5 and go through the Fusion Housing, the furniture boutique. And then I want to remind our council that the National League of Cities is going to be held in March. And if you want to go to that, be sure to let Amy Glandon know so she can reserve your attendance at that meeting, register you. And also finally, for our legislative breakfast, you all have an email from me about what to talk about. All you simply have to do is present the items that we would like to talk about to our legislators. And nobody is supposed to only do one item. If you'd like to jump in and, for example, talk with Jack Walsh about public safety, or Councilmember Dovey about anything to do with land use, or Councilmember Tran about capital budget, or Deputy Mayor Honda on transportation, and Lydia's going to work with Deputy Mayor Honda on that. And then Councilmember McDaniel is going to do some work on some ancillary issues, and that's what we're going to be presenting. And I know that the Federal Mayor is going to be there to write a report on what happens. So we'll be talking to our legislators, which are Representatives Reeve and Taylor, and then Senator Wilson. So that'll be next Monday morning. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, now we're on to consent agenda. These are items A through K, this meeting. These items have gone previously through committee, and I'll go ahead and read them, and I'll ask if a council member wants an item pulled. Otherwise, they can all be voted on at once. Item A, minutes for the November 21, 2023 regular and special meeting. B, monthly financial report, October 2023. C, AP vouchers, 10/16 through 11/15, 23, and payroll vouchers, 11/1 through 11/30/23. D, interlocal to establish the Greater Federal Way Community Emergency Management Program, GFW-CEM. E, Granicus proposal on master license and service agreement. F, 2024 Senior Advisory Commission Annual Work Plan. G, Washington Department of Corrections Master Agreement Amendment. H, Truve Apartment Multifamily Tax Exemption MFTE Contract. I, T-Mobile Site Lease Agreement BPA Twin Lakes. J, T-Mobile Site Lease Amendment Lakota Park. K, Resolution adopting 2024 fee schedule. Council, are there any items you would want pulled for separate consideration? Councilmember McDaniel?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to request H to be pulled.
H, okay. And Councilmember Dovey?
Yeah, I'd like to pull I and J.
I and J, okay. Deputy Mayor? Excuse me, Council President.
That's okay, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move approval of consent agenda items A through G and consent agenda item K.
Second.
It's been a motion, a second, to move the items listed by the Council President. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Matters passed unanimously. Councilmember McDaniel, as to item H.
Yeah, so on item H, the reason I requested the poll is because I wanted to be able to vote my mind on that one without pulling the other ones down. When the council voted to pass this multifamily tax exemption, I did no clue what it was, so I dug deeper into it, and I just wanted to make sure everybody's understanding how this moves forward. In the future, our downtown core will be open for any builders to use this exemption, and when I did the math on this, and I had it semi-verified, on every $1 million worth of building, it's a $10,000 to $11,000 tax that the city will not be generating. So that's 87 on an 8-year and 130,000 on a 12-year contract if they go with this. The reason why, on those I will vote for since the city voted for it, the council voted for it. On this one, my hesitance on this is this development was put in play beforehand, and the whole reason for the exemption was to get builders to build and to give them an enticement. This project was already in the process of going forward. We added that location as a secondary this year, and then we've actually passed the ordinance to make it happen. So for that reason, I'll be voting no on this particular item.
All right, is there a motion to pass?
Mayor, I move approval of consent agenda H.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the matter? All those in favor of H?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Stephanie?
Councilmember Sapadawson?
Nay.
Councilmember McDaniel?
Nay.
Councilmember Tran?
Aye.
Councilmember Walsh?
Aye.
Councilmember Dovey?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Honda?
Nay.
Council President Kochmar?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-3.
All right, and now we are on to I and J.
Yeah,
Councilman?
I pulled those because I do business with T-Mobile. I'd like to recuse myself from the vote.
Very good. Council President?
Thank you, Mayor. I move approval of items I and J on the consent agenda. These items are T-Mobile site lease agreement, one for BPA Twin Lakes and the other for Lakota Park.
Second.
It's been a motion, a second, The record will reflect that Councilmember Dovey has recused himself on these items. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Matters pass unanimously with one exception, with one recusal. Okay, now we're on to item 7, council business. Federal Way Community Center Locker Room Architect. This is item A. Presentation by Autumn Gressett, our Community Relations Liaison, Contract Administrator.
Good evening.
And I presume we have the architect here.
Yes.
Yeah, very good.
Apologies, one moment while I get
Very
my
good.
presentation up. Good evening, Mayor Farrell, Deputy Mayor Honda, Council President Kochmar, and council members. Thank you for the opportunity to present this evening. As mentioned, the item before you is in regards to the Federal Way Community Center locker room renovations and the architect that we are proposing to move forward with. The Federal Way Community Center locker rooms transcends just brick and mortar. We are working towards a commitment to enhance the longevity and sustainability of the infrastructure that so many of our community members enjoy day to day. The policy question before you this evening is, should the City Council approve the proposed contract for design of the Federal Way Community Center locker room renovations and authorize the mayor to execute the contract? And the mayor's recommendation is option 1. A brief history that you guys are all aware of, but in May 2023, we went ahead with an initial assessment, which was brought forth to the June 27th FedRAC committee meeting, and a recommendation to partake in a full renovation of the locker rooms. Since then, we've taken some initial action to bring on our project management team, which you've met, Rock Project Management, and then furthermore have engaged with interviews for architectural and engineering firms, leading us to tonight to introduce you to Inova Architects. Joining me this evening from Inova Architects and for a quick introduction is Paul McCormick, our principal in charge and point of contact, and Scott Salatis, our architect. Oh, yes, sorry.
No, it's all good. Yours locker?
Yeah, start
Start where you need to.
Sorry about that. We didn't have screen share on. I'll fast forward. And again, our architect and aquatic specialist, Scott Salatis. With that, I will answer any questions. Obviously, our architect has not had an opportunity to fully engage, but we look forward to bringing you further updates and information as we move forward.
All right, so, Councilmember McDaniel, do you have a question?
Yeah, a couple.
Okay, go, right.
I looked through the proposal and looked through the pictures and stuff. Is the new architectural design and stuff, are they also including the renovations for the HVAC and the, is that going to be part of it?
That is correct, yep.
Okay. And then the second question I have right now is, our current budget is 1.7. I know that's gone up. I see that the cost is about $232,000 for this. What is our current budget going to be for the project? Do we have a new updated budget cost?
The updated budget that we brought forth at the last FedRAC meeting was about $2.3 million, and we are currently working with grant specialists to secure that funding in 2024.
Okay. And are steam rooms and saunas going to be part of the rebuild, or is that going to be something that we'll be taking out of the picture in the future?
That is currently part of the rebuild.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, Deputy Mayor?
Linda was on first.
Oh, I'm sorry, Council President?
I'm so sorry.
All right, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. When will the work start?
Our first method with the architect is we will go ahead and enter into a further assessment and design plans. Our anticipation is to be able to start work per the original timeline of September 2024.
So one section of the locker rooms will be done at a time.
Yes, and we'll have further details on the phasing as we work through the design plans and are able to move forward with a bid for a contractor.
And this could take up to 2 years?
Our current assessment is approximately a 6-month construction timeframe once we get started.
For the entire project?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, great, thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, Councilmember Walsh? You have a motion?
Yes. I move approval of the proposed contract and authorize the mayor to execute said contract.
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Matters passed unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Autumn. Okay, item B, Cisco WebEx calling agreement upgrade, and there's a related item, the core network upgrade. Thomas, would you like to do both presentations, or you want to do them one by one?
There are two separate presentations.
Let's
there.
do one by one.
So
Item B first, the Cisco WebEx calling agreement update. Thomas Fitchner, our IT director, will make the presentation.
all right, thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council President, and members of City Council. Let's see, cue this stuff up. All right. Before you tonight, item number 7B is the Cisco phone system upgrade. And we'll get this going. So I apologize. I hope my voice makes it all the way through this meeting. I've been dealing with a cold sickness, so we'll see what we can get done here. So, phone system upgrade that we're talking about. The architecture is kind of a lot like this, and you don't need to be an expert. It's a high-level design, mainly for your reference and edification. So, the couple things that you need to be that I'm going to point out here is, number one is we have on-premise phones, so starting from the bottom where the telephone is represented, and we have servers that are on site. So literally the boxes sit here in this building downstairs in our server data center. They connect through our network, so it goes up through switches, firewalls. We have a special router that is connected to a copper pair of T1s that connect to Lumen. So that's how, if you pick up a phone here in City Hall, we get out and make a phone call. So the problem that we have and that we're dealing with, and why I'm here before you tonight, is that that router specifically and those servers are end-of-lifed. So as of about June of this year, they no longer are supported by Cisco, and they have served their life. So we had requested in the budget money to replace these items, and that's what we thought. So we called up Cisco. We got a hold of our vendor, and we said we want to replace these, and they said that's fine. We'll work through with a quote. But are you interested in WebEx calling? I said no, not really. But they're like, well, maybe you should be, and we're going to work you up a quote anyway. So they did, and we started this back in May. And the difference, there's a couple key differences here with WebEx. And again, this is a high-level overview, but there's a couple key differences here. The first thing is you notice that there is some other things on the right-hand side of the image. It's got some mobile phones and a regular desk phone. And those are off-premise. They're all outside of the city's walls. They can still connect to WebEx calling just as if they were here. So if you dial your desk phone, mine's 253-835-2547, it'll ring my desk here, but also on the app on the phone. And I can also make calls as if I was that number anywhere. So mobility perspective, it's significantly increased. There's no more special router because there are also no more servers on our site that we manage. Everything is up in the Cisco WebEx calling cloud. So this phone that you pick up here goes through just like a normal computer would or a laptop connected to one of our Wi-Fi access points out to the internet. It runs over that same critical infrastructure, which we'll talk about in the next item that's before you tonight. So the other cool thing is, if, God forbid, anything happens and our entire infrastructure here has a significant impact or outage, all the offline items still work. So literally you could take that desk phone that's sitting over next to Stephanie, plug it in at a Comcast home network, and it will work as if it were here. So in a disaster recovery sense, this is a much better solution. Not to mention, that whole WebEx calling cloud isn't our responsibility. My team isn't supporting that. So those are all very good things. So we kind of covered a little of the benefits here. It's hosted entirely by Cisco. It's It's one provider, so we're not using, Cisco for the calling center and then CenturyLink for another thing. It's one provider. Cisco provides everything. WebEx calling includes the long distance within US, which we do not. We pay per minute right now. It is easier management. And I've got a gentleman here, Brian Pearson, who is the telecom expert and has been here since the 90s. He'll be retiring very soon. And with that, a lot of that, knowledge kind of will go with him. And so this is a perfect opportunity for us to kind of go out of the traditional way, because the new WebEx system is much easier to manage from an IT perspective. We don't need to replace all the city's desk phones. Everything that we have here, that we made that in capital investment, will still work. Includes basic WebEx meetings, so similar to Zoom, we have a small amount of Zoom licenses. This will give everybody with a phone a license for Zoom. We will also have licenses for Teams as well, with our Microsoft 365 agreement. But it provides just one more option that's more ubiquitous amongst city staff for meetings. And as we touched on before, you can access it virtually anywhere. It's fault tolerant. And also, as part of the agreement that we would be signing with them, there's a 20% growth. So up to 76 additional licenses before they say, whoa, we need some more money. So it's just part of that enterprise agreement. They know organizations our size ebb and flow depending on economies and hiring practices. So they're willing to accommodate that. This is an enterprise level product. In addition, they're willing to negotiate a 5-year contract with option to renew for 3. So it locks our pricing in, which is also a good thing because it gives us something that we can plan against. So if you look at the numbers, the cost comparison, on the left-hand side of the graph, there's the on-premise, if we just were to upgrade those servers like we had intended, and then the WebEx calling on the right. And so you'll notice that there's some, obviously, more hardware that we'd have to buy because we have to buy servers and we have to buy routers. The professional services are a little bit less because we're pretty much just copying and pasting a bunch of stuff. And the annual maintenance is a little bit more. Interesting. And so if you look at the bottom line there, the difference between the 5 and the 8 year is on the 5-year on-premise, well, we'll be doing another server upgrade again. And so that's factoring in a new server, software, and professional services to do that migration again, and a 15% inflation based on today's and kind of the way that CPI and everything is going. So that's an estimate. And you'll look like we're definitely money ahead on the WebEx calling side of things. So to put that into clear terms, it saves us $45,000 over 5 years and $153,000 over 8 years if we were to do the 8 years. So, but this project isn't just Cisco WebEx, it's our calling system just in general. So there are some things that we're going to be doing to try and save a little bit of money as well. And so our goal, like Lumen's goal is to eliminate a lot of the copper infrastructure out there. So they want us off their copper plants just as much as we kind of want to get off of it. And so what we'll be doing, and Brian and Parks Facilities is going to be working on converting our alarms and our elevators and stuff over to use cellular if we can. There's also some other options that we have to leverage the Cisco WebEx system as well. So we're factoring this in as part of the overall project because we looked at opportunities that how could we save more money? And so that's what we're doing here, because that I believe is our job to the citizens of Federal Way is to be good stewards of the funds. The other thing that's unique to this is with Lumen, one of the advantages of that is we have blocks of numbers. So the 253835 prefix, we have a bunch of the 2,000 range, a bunch in the 3,000 range, in the 6,000 range, and in the 7,000 range. And so there are numbers that we have that are locked, like we've staked claim to them, that aren't in use right now, and that we could use in the future. And so the Cisco WebEx calling does not allow for us to park those. So we have another service that we investigated, and we'll be parking about 100 lines for future growth. And that costs us a little bit additionally. But that's all included as part of that cost comparison, because we wanted to make really sure that we're doing apples to apples So the cool part is this optional upgrade, we're saving some money, so I'm taking up opportunity here to actually spend it and invest in ourselves and in our building. So the one-time savings allows for some enhancement of our meeting rooms. Currently, we have in these meeting rooms, the Hylabos room, which is right over here, you guys are familiar with that, Dashpoint room, the mayor's conference room, Lakota and Steel Lake. We have computers, we have nice big display in it, but we also have a little itty bitty Logitech webcam. And while that's somewhat good for some meetings, it's not great for all meetings, especially when you're doing interviews for positions for the people, the candidates aren't here in person. It's also hard when you have a large meeting room like the Hylabos room and you're in the back, and if you have something to say, that little webcam speaker microphone can't pick you up. And so it's hard for the people that are remote to hear you. And so these are things that staff has been requesting since about 2021, like, hey, can we do something? And so we've priced some solutions that are adequate for that room sizing. It's based on kind of the size of the space and then also the number of people that would be in it. In addition to some headsets and some webcams as well to kind of disperse amongst our police, our staff. We've bought a lot with the COVID money, but we still haven't covered everybody yet. So the total cost of that would be about $80,000 or $80,500 to add that to this project. We did review Teams Phone, and the reason we did that is, well, we already have Teams as part of our 365 agreement with Microsoft, so why not use it? That was the direction I was headed. That's why I originally said, no, I'm not interested in WebEx calling. And then as part of that 365 agreement, I asked them, well, how much would it cost? And they said, well, you've got to add the Teams Phone add-on, and that's a separate license per user, and you have to add the calling plan per user as well. It's also not compatible with any of our Cisco desk phones, so we have to buy new Yalink phones to replace that. And it's also not as robust and mature as the WebEx calling. As you can see, Teams was recently, new kid on the block as of 2017. WebEx has been around since the 90s, and Cisco has bought them in 1998 and has folded them into their product portfolio. So, or not WebEx, but sorry, the call manager. So Cisco has been a part of calling for a long time. So to add those licenses to our 365, it would have actually cost an additional $33,000 on top of what we're paying today with our on-premise setup and CenturyLink and Lumen. So that really wasn't the direction that I think the city should go in. And I didn't even bother to get the quote of how much it would cost to buy the new desk phones, because it just, the ongoing cost was so much. So what is the total cost of this thing? Pretty much these all items add up to the total year one, so the 102, 45, and 80 all add up to the 228. Total project cost over 5 years is $412,000. Project cost over 8 years is $550,000. The reason the zone's not to exceed is, again, that agreement would be for 5 years. So that's all, we wouldn't be factoring in the 8 year at this point, because I would bring that before council in 5 years to renew. And so the other thing is, remember, we have parts to this project that are not included under this particular agreement. So it's that alarm system upgrade and the elevators and that kind of stuff. We're doing that in the DID parking. We're doing that separate from Cisco WebEx. So that's why Zones, who's our reseller, who we'll find out about in a little bit, their not to exceed would be $395,000. So the funding source, where are we getting this money from? So I've been working with Director Groom in finance about all this to make sure everything was on the up and up. The capital project will be funded by the IT fund balance. The ongoing annual expenditures will be funded by the IT operational budget. If you recall, we're saving money on the ongoing side of things. So the IT fund balance is projected to finish 2023 at $4.9 million. So we have the 2023, the reason I say 2023 and 2024 is because we have appropriated it already in 2023 as part of the budget amendment that the council is I believe approving tonight, or is already approved. For 2024, this $40,000 will be carried forward into that. We will be making an amendment request for another 145,000, because remember, we didn't plan we were going to do this originally when we requested the budget. So that's why we will need the additional funds. And then the IT operational budget will absorb the impacts because we're saving money. So the total budget in 2024, how much we'd expend is 231,000. And I want to be correct in the staff report, it should be 145, not 135. So who are we buying this from? Cisco is the manufacturer of the equipment, except for the arm elevator. That's going to be outside of that. Cisco is providing the WebEx calling platform. We will execute an enterprise agreement with Cisco directly. Zones is our vendor and reseller. So they are headquartered in Auburn, Washington. They're a Cisco Gold partner. We've done a lot of business with them over the years as well. Zones is also the partner that we will execute a professional services agreement with to help us with this migration. And then we'll be using, all this will be purchased off the NASPO Value Point purchasing contract, and you can see the numbers there. So this allows the city to do a lot of things. Saving money is one thing, providing flexibility and resiliency is another, and definitely reducing my staff's burden to manage it is a good thing, among others. Mayor's recommendation of the two before you is to approve the proposed purchase and agreement. That's all.
All right, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Well, it sounds amazing, but my question is, you talked about the Performing Arts Center, you talked about City Hall and the Community Center. What about Dumas Bay?
Yeah, and Brian caught me about that. He's like, you forgot Dumas Bay on there. It's like, yeah, you're right. So no, they do have an alarm system, and we are working with them. So any facility that we have, Steel Lake Maintenance and others, the Annex Building, Celebration Park, all of those I really should have listed, but I was going with the main ones with like the elevators as well, because that's kind of one of our issues. But no, all those city facilities, we're looking at every single one of those copper phone lines that we have currently with CenturyLink and Lumen to migrate them either over to using the WebEx calling platform or some sort of machine-to-machine communication over cellular. So.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Councilmember McDaniel.
A couple questions. So in our current configuration with all the routers and switches you had, if it was Dumas Bay or one of these distant locations, do they actually have PBXs out there, or do they link back to here and then come out?
Everything links back here.
Okay,
so,
is that coming off of fiber or copper coming back?
So coming back to this site is all fiber. We have a dark fiber network that links all of our buildings together. And then from this building, when it leaves on to CenturyLink, is copper.
So it's copper, the T1 is?
Correct.
Okay. And then I take it everything's wired for like Cat 5e or something like that, or you guys sit?
I mean, our city facilities are a little different. Like Dumas Bay is barely Cat 5. But this building's Cat 6, PAC is Cat 6.
Was there any upgrades for any of the other buildings in order for having these VoIP phones added to them?
No, because remember, we're using these same phones right now today.
But in the other locations too?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
nothing changed on
citywide,
that
yeah.
one. All right, and then I worked with Costco in the years past, and I'm sure somebody else on this board has too. They're very smart business people, so when they offer something that's making them less money, I always kind of question the motive behind it. When you went through in this, did you see anything that was of obvious? In my mind, the biggest savings is the intelligence that leaves on the phone systems. Once that person moves on, that's a huge loss. So I understand moving to the VoIP system, going to the cloud, all that stuff. My concern would be, again, is the not Comcast, but the Cisco aspect of the Y factor.
No, for sure, and I definitely understand, and that's honestly my approach to a lot of the cloud offerings is to we'll wait and see. There's been municipalities around that have gone all in on the cloud, and then they get their bill at the end of the year, and they're like, let's fire that infrastructure back up and bring stuff back to premise, because I know one of them that did that, and they couldn't believe how much money they were spending in cloud costs. So there is always a cost, right? Remember I said it's a project, and we are also looking for cost-saving opportunities with the CenturyLink things. So WebEx, it does cost money, because they're hosting it. It's their servers, it's their cloud, it's their everything. They're able to streamline it, but when you take all of our systems and we bring them all over and we do some of this MTM or machine to machine over cellular, we're able to make it work. So is it directly saving it's almost break even. But that extra, all those extra copper phone lines that we're taking into account and either going to force them over onto WebEx with the little devices that you plug in and they give you analog dial tone, or over Verizon or FirstNet machine-to-machine cellular. So that's where we're able to get some extra cost savings. So is really moving away totally from the on-premise and the copper T1s through CenturyLink and the regular phone lines too. But also, the biggest cost is not having to replace those servers again. That's where the real big kicker is.
Gotcha.
Is in that year 8. That's when we start really realizing the savings.
And are the licenses attached to the phones, or phone number? What do they attach to the license that we'll be purchasing?
User number.
So you can have one person with a cell phone and a direct line, that's gonna be one?
Yep. So my 253-835-2547 number will work on this phone. It'll work on this phone. It'll work on my desk phone. It'll work on my soft phone, WebEx, log in on my laptop, on my desktop, all that. So
And
I can be anywhere.
The price included all locations?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, yep.
And then I'll assume that once we cut over, a lot of the Cisco gear we have downstairs, we no longer use then?
Really,
the VoIP stuff?
the only thing that we were really surplusing are the 2 servers that we have on premise, and then some of the older 7900 phones, series phones that we got that are out in some of our maintenance facilities. Those will be surplused because they're not compatible with WebEx calling. But all of our desk phones that we have that you see in the council offices, those all work. We're keeping all that.
So it's the big part is the 2 servers, we're not gonna need those. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Tran.
Already asked the last question.
All right. Councilor W.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. I know enough about this industry to be dangerous, so. Cisco is the primary contract. They're the ones holding the cloud, right?
Correct.
And then we're going to Zones as the dealer, as the one selling to us?
That is correct.
And then we're going to the national contract, I think you had NESPA or whatever, which one? And what are we buying off of that?
The contract allows us to buy direct because it's been negotiated and the state of Washington recognizes that.
Right.
To do that without bidding. So that's why we're using the contracting vehicle to purchase.
You're using the NASPO contract because that's the state or nationwide pricing that Cisco's able to give to Zones to sell to us.
Correct.
Are we going out to other dealers like Zones so it's competitive in the standpoint of what they're willing to sell it to us for?
We have not. We've used. So, ironically, the firm that put in our system today, our Cisco system today with CenturyLink, they had a pretty robust Cisco ARM that supports that. We've had some challenges on supporting and getting the support that we got in 2016 when we did this.
Right.
Again. So what I really did is I went through and I looked at I wanted a vendor that was close, that had a kind of a vested interest in this area, as kind of our neighbor. And there's not a lot of those around. There are some that are headquarters in Post Falls, Iowa, or Idaho. Others kind of in the Redmond area. Zones historically, and one of the reasons why I'm confident in them is that we've used them for probably 7-8 years, and on other purchases as well that we have competitively bid or seek multiple quotes, and they've always ended up beating them.
Okay.
So I'm confident in their abilities.
And when we looked at Cisco, did we look at companies like Ring Central? As you said, you looked at Teams. I mean, you looked at other voice over IP vendors, or just
So
Cisco?
the 3 that I would consider with this, number 1 is it's either Cisco, something that we can directly migrate to because it makes the most sense for us. It's the best, I think, bang for the buck because we can reuse a lot of our infrastructure that we have. Same thing, we're not changing it to something completely different. So that was some of the hesitation between teams is it's going to be great because we can just fold everything into one license. Not only is it more expensive, but it's also going to be set up a little differently. Right. So the management of it would be a little different. So we looked at Teams. Also, Zoom Phone has come up recently, but also a lot of these things are relatively new to the industry. Cisco has definitely been around, and the WebEx product is a very mature and robust platform. So
Okay.
I didn't spend a ton of time looking at every single one of them because there are a lot of them out there.
There are a lot of them, yeah.
For sure.
Okay.
But I wanted to be in something that would make sense for the city. So Microsoft with our 365 agreement, Zoom, or WebEx calling, and WebEx seemed to make the most sense.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Seffa Dawson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Thomas. My question is, you talked about Zoom and all the WebEx. Is Teams part of this? Because I think you mentioned something about Teams.
I did mention something about Teams. So Teams is a competitor to WebEx. So they are, it's something, so we, with our Microsoft 365 license agreement that the city has to manage its Microsoft software, Teams is also a part of that, like the base level Teams. And to add the calling component of it to actually use telephone service on it, that is something that we would have to buy extra. It's not included with what we already pay. So I mentioned Teams in that regard as it is a competitor to WebEx, and it's something also that I considered as part of whether or not we should go to WebEx or should we go to Teams. One other component that I will mention is on this optional upgrade deal with all the room kits for the various meeting rooms. That equipment, yes, it is Cisco branded, but it is fully compatible with Teams and with Zoom and others, so that if the city is joining a meeting with Sound Transit and they use Teams, we can join a Teams meeting room in that equipment and it will work just fine.
So can we do that from our iPad and laptops and stuff also?
Well, it's the same thing, right? You have the Zoom app on the iPad, and you have the Teams app on the iPad, and you can join whatever meeting you need to. Yes.
So that doesn't go. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Walsh. Actually, real quickly, just to follow up.
I forgot a follow-up question. When you showed the 5-year purchase versus the 8-year, is that a capital cost or is that a monthly cost to get to the difference to go for the extra 3 years?
Both. So in the staff report, you can see where I outlined the difference, and you can compare the licensing components and everything from the on-premise to this. There's a lot of numbers, and so I wanted to really make this simple for the presentation
But I guess the question is, would you recommend going 8 years or 5?
I'd recommend 8, but the contract is Cisco signs a 5-year with option to renew. So even them, they'll hang out for 5 years, make sure that we're good, and then they'll just have that clause in there. And if we're happy and everything is good to go, we'll just renew it for another 3.
Thank you.
Councilmember Walsh.
Yeah, I highly suspect that I'm speaking for some other members of the council, but a big thank you to Paul and Jack for knowing the questions to ask and knowing how to respond to them. And thank you, Thomas. Most of it went, like this with me. And I appreciate having somebody on the council or somebody's on the council that actually knows something about this. Thank you.
Councilmember McDaniel.
Yeah, just for clarification, so we can sign the 5, but the price will be locked in for 8 if we want to do the last 3s?
Yeah. So when the agreement's going to be 5 years with option to renew for another 36 months. So 60 months with option to renew for 36.
Yeah, I like the 8.
Yeah, it's optimal. Yeah.
And lastly, how long has our system, we've had our system more than 8 years now, right?
This current one went in place in 2016.
Yeah. It would seem that you want, if you get price concessions, you want to go longer than shorter.
All right, Councilmember Tran, you have a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the proposed purchase from Zones LLC and authorize the mayor to execute the agreement for a term of 5 years and a total not to exceed $395,000.
I'll second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Matter passed unanimously. Okay, on to the next item, item C, Core Network Update. Thomas Fishner, up again.
All right. All right, so Councilmember Walsh, to your point, so we talked about a lot of networking concepts, and there's going to be a test in this one for you. So Cisco Core Network Upgrade. So we talked about the phone system, right? So what is this? What is the core network upgrade? What is the core anyway? Well, if you want to talk overall hierarchy, what really matters really is the clouds, the internet, and the networking engineer guys were using that terminology way before it became a marketing buzzword, and that everybody is using it today. Effectively, all these little devices are just other little blinky devices on our network that connect to something else, and ultimately gets the computer, the printers, the access points, the phones, the servers, and laptops all to communicate back to the cloud. So it's just one way that these devices down at the bottom talk to the little clouds up at the top and intermix themselves. I didn't get excited about different sites and fiber and all that kind of stuff, just simple lines on the diagram just for the purpose of this. So technically, the core is, well, those two boxes right there at that layer. That's our core switches. They're downstairs. Again, all this stuff is on premise, and they connect us and all this stuff, and this computer and our Zoom call and all that stuff to the internet right now. It's all actively working right now. But my networking instructor, professor, would not be happy with the term that I'm using to describe it to you folks. So I apologize for that. And if you want to get technical about it, we really have that is our design right now. More on that later. We don't have a redundant router, and we don't have a redundant ISP yet. But thanks to the mayor and the council for approving, we have budgeted item, and we are working collaboratively with the school district and fire district to kind of pool our resources together. We're going to have actually a really awesome option for that. But we're referring to these items for the core for this particular item. So the routers, the core switches, and some of the access layer switches. So that's what I'm to use that. When I'm talking about core, we're talking about those items there. So why are we doing this? The core, kind of, if you haven't figured out that from this diagram, it's kind of like the spinal cord or central nervous system of your body. It connects your brain with everything else that's in there. So the core layer 3 switch end of life in 2025. And it's not something that if those devices decide to go south on us, that we wait to the last minute to replace. So it's good to be a little bit ahead of the curve than behind it and paying a premium. That particular model, it's a Cisco 4500X, it was introduced in 2012. We put the first one in place in 2014. Second one went in place in 2016 when we added the phone system. We added a little bit more redundancy because, again, that was single point of failure. And so they've been dutifully serving us until now. The router, on the other hand, does not support 500 megabits internet connection speed that we have, or greater than 500 megabits. And the router also is not redundant. And so, well, yeah, we could add another one like what we have now, and we could just upgrade the router to support new ones. But again, all that equipment has been marked end of life by Cisco. So it would be foolish for us to buy something, a used car, knowing that it was not going to be supported and you couldn't buy the right spark plugs for it in a year or two. So it wouldn't be something that you'd want to do. So that's why we're looking at it as a whole project. Many of our access switches are well past the end of life. So anything in this building, not anything. Most of the stuff in this building is 100% supported as of right now on the switches. But a lot of the other remote sites that we have, Steel Lake Park, the mall, et cetera, all those places, we put some of these. If it fails, it's not going to be the end of the world. If this building fails, it kind of is. So we don't want to do that. So we put our best infrastructure here at our PAC and at the community center. And even Dumas Bay has quality infrastructure in it because those are something that we depend on. Those are sites they need, and when computers are down, that impacts their business. And so we need greater speeds, we need redundancy, we need fully supported hardware for the future. So that's why we're doing this. When I was making this PowerPoint presentation, I put more on this later, thinking that the WebEx calling was going to come after this presentation. But you already knew about that, so thank you. This infrastructure will support that into the future. Here are some of the items that are being purchased. Our routers, the core switches, like the true proper core switches, the 9500s, and then the 9200s are access switches that we put throughout, and then also the SmartNet support and DNA software. Total cost is hardware and licensing, which is that DNA software, $180,000, support year one, 13,000. The reason that year one support is higher than the ongoing is because I buy support for everything in the core. So our core switches, those 9500s, the routers, things that we depend on for the day in and day out operations have support on it. The access layer switches that we could have a spare here on site and just swap it out, I don't need it. All I need to do is make sure that when we set it up and we need to call support and make sure everything's good to go, we're good. That's why I buy the year one on pretty much everything, and then I renew only the critical devices. Because otherwise, I mean, we just can't afford all this stuff. If I bought SmartNet on every single Cisco device we had here, we'd be paying thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on stuff. It just, we don't get the benefit of it. And if there was a risk, because a lot of that stuff is risk-based, I would be recommending that, but it's not. So the funding source on this particular project is a capital fund will be, again, funded by the technology fund balance. It's projected to finish, again, same, 4.9 million. And these are the projects that have been already defined and appropriated in 2023 and subsequently carry forward to 2024 budgets that we'll be drawing on for this project. So we have a total of 312,000 funding. And remember, just to refresh your memory, it's a $194,000 project. Funding source included. So the ongoing expenditures, again, will be, we have the same router switches. We'll be adding support for that. So the ongoing costs are still going to be no problem to be added and to be covered by the existing IT non-government DP services budget, which is 1.5 million, which we pay all of our services support and maintenance on out of that fund. So again, who are we buying this from? It's the same. Cisco's manufacturing the equipment. Zones is the vendor reseller. Same contract number from NASBO. Allows the city to provide a robust foundation, keep our vital equipment supported and secure, and allow for redundancy and fault tolerance. So it's a good move. It's a good thing. Keep the health of the city's network. And the mayor's options before you to either approve or not, and the mayor's recommendation is to approve.
All right, Councilmember McDaniel.
2 quick questions. Do we have any Cisco certified staff?
Not yet. We do have one that has been going through the courseware. Jerry, who also supports a lot of the Safe City cameras and his on the network side. He's not certified yet, but he's gone through a lot of the courses. So I told him as soon as he's ready, I'm going to pay for that certification.
Gotcha. And then, so when we have route change or something like that, do we just call Cisco? Is that part of what the maintenance is that you were talking about?
Yeah. Their TAC is incredibly helpful on that, and so yeah, we can do that. And the thing is with Cisco equipment, there's people that you get the people that hate it and the people that love it. They've been around the block. They've been in this industry for a long time. A lot of good news is with Cisco is YouTube videos, instructional videos, a ton of wealth of documentation on their support. So a lot of that stuff can be handled without even making a call.
Okay, my last question is, do we have physical backups of the route tables and everything that we plug these routers with and stuff?
So the route tables, so what we do is every time we have a server that holds configuration data, and so when you write mem on the router or store it to memory, it copies that configuration file out. So
is it like a text file for us then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So.
All right. Any other questions? All right, Councilor Tran.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the proposed purchase from Zones LLC for a total not to exceed $195,000.
Second.
Been a motion. A second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Matter passes unanimously. Great job, Thomas. We're very fortunate to have you here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
All right. You don't really think much about the computers and all of that infrastructure until your computer won't turn on. And that's when members of IT get a very panicked call from either myself or Pam. So, exactly. Or council. That's right. And Jerry's great, by the way. And Brian, thank you very much. Your entire team's great. Okay, and now we have Tanya Carter, Economic Development Director, here for the ARPA Business Resiliency Program.
Good evening, Mayor, Council President, Coach Mar, Deputy Mayor Honda and the rest of the council members. Tanya Carter, your Economic Development Director, here tonight as a follow-up for a discussion that we had at the FEDERAC meeting, the committee meeting last week. So this is in regards to funding for a business resiliency program that is funded by ARPA. And to recap, actually, at FEDERAC, what we discussed was a two-part business resiliency program for a total of $220,000 from ARPA. The first part of the resiliency program would have been a broken window fund to replace windows broken at businesses for $100,000 with a $30,000 administrative fee for that. And then the second part was to support a mobile surveillance trailer program to build on the MST program that the police department is building to support businesses in safety and resiliency. And there was a very healthy discussion at FEDERAC, and it was motioned to actually adjust the program and have a discussion here at council to not fund the broken window fund, but instead to use the total funding for purchasing, hopefully with the negotiation of Chief Huang, 4 MSTs instead of the 2 that we had originally proposed, and then the remaining balance for any maintenance or other costs that would be needed to purchase those MSTs. And so the policy question here tonight is, should the City of Federal Way use the ARPA funds for this business resiliency program that includes the purchase of 4 additional MSTs? And Chief Huang is also here to answer any subsequent questions that anyone should have. But just again, to recap, there's 2 options to consider: to approve the business resiliency program or not approve it and provide direction to staff. And the mayor would recommend option 1. And then again, recapping on the funding, it was $220,000 in ARPA funding that we were discussing. The chief and his team were able to negotiate excellent prices for the MST. So a total of 4 MSTs would be approximately $214,000, and then about $5,000 for some additional equipment needed on the MSTs. And this is, again, a recap of the MST program that we are building jointly, or we would be building jointly with the PD. They currently have 2 MSTs. There are 2 more that council approved through seizure funds for them to purchase. They've held off on those until now because there's a possibility to negotiate, obviously, for a better price. Them adding 4 additional trailers that we would be discussing tonight would bring the total for the MST program for the city to 8. And then, as mentioned previously at FEDERAC, the idea is that we would promote to businesses that they could essentially, on a bi-weekly basis, or as needed, as we see, schedule these to be put into their locations, and they would be picked up and moved based on the schedule of businesses signing up. So that is all. If anyone has any questions for myself or Chief Huang, we are here to answer those.
Council, any questions about this? Deputy Mayor? And then Council President.
Thank you. So I had previously asked if these could have an emergency button on them that would dial 911 directly. And I received a response from Thomas on Saturday. Thank you, Thomas, for your response on a Saturday, saying that by adding this feature, this creates a scenario where the city would have the duty to ensure that this button works when pressed 100% of the time, and a liability to the city when it doesn't work. It also sets an expectation that help will arrive in a timely fashion, which cannot always be guaranteed based on active calls. Well, I'm sure that's a concern that the city has, but my concern is, and will always be, is that the MSTs have cameras. That's what they are. It's a camera system. It records what's going on in the area. Our Safe City cameras do the same thing. So what is the difference between the MST and a Safe City camera, besides that the MST has a blue flashing light?
The difference is these trailers are mobile surveillance trailers. and they are powered by solar. So one of the things that we run into is if we have weather condition like this, they're only going to function for maybe 5 to 9 days before the power source goes out. So there's no way for us to know whether there's going to be a power source at that particular trailer or not. So our special operations unit, who's responsible for the oversight of the program, will check on these trailers. So one of the downside to the mobile surveillance trailers, it's not as reliable as hardwired safe city, surveillance cameras throughout the city. So putting a potential, once you have a button and you push that button to call 911, there is some sort of duty that's established now that the city's responsible to respond to. It's very possible that the button isn't going to work because the system it doesn't have the power at that time. So when it doesn't have power, we have to bring it back to the station, we have to charge it, and it's again good for about a week time should there be no sun to power the solar panel. So one of the things we learned with our 2 pilot trailers is that they're single panel. And because they were single panel solar panels, we had generator backup. So what we're doing with the additional ones that we're going to purchase, we're going to buy the 3 solar panel mobile surveillance trailers. So they're going to last longer in these inclement weather conditions. So I hope that answers your question, but I don't think we can guarantee that when a citizen or somebody who's under duress pushes that button, that it's going to connect with 911.
I've called 911 before and have been put on hold without even being asked why I'm calling 911. So, and I know other people have too, so I'm not sure that I have an expectation that when I call 911, I will get immediate response. But I'll move on from that. So safe city cameras and the MST cameras pretty much do the same thing. Is that correct?
That's correct. They're integrated. It ties into the same system, yes. The officers in the field can look at the cameras, so can we at the station. So yes, they're part of our Safe City program. The advantage is, let's say a business like Wild Wave says, hey, could we get a couple of these MSTs, at our facility during the summer months? If we have 8 units, we'll have the capacity to support businesses like that. Last week, I was talking to somebody at Federal National Little League who said, could we get some trailers during the base? Absolutely. When we have the capacity, we'll be able to serve more. They're pretty expensive, so our small local businesses won't be able to purchase these units at $53,000 a piece. Some of our larger corporations already have their MSTs in the parking lots, whether it's Winco, Lowe's, these larger places, retail centers will have MSTs, and they've become pretty popular. So when we bought these 2 as a pilot project, we deployed it back in March, we realized instantly the demand was rather high. So today, we have one at our maintenance center to enhance our security there, and then we have one at H-Mart at this point. But we have requests from our local hotels, other retail centers, so we are doing our best to deploy the 2 that we have. Once we order it, if it's approved by the council, 90 to 120 days, we'll take delivery, and then we'll be able to deploy more. It will definitely make people feel safer. It will reduce crime. No guarantee that's going to reduce all crime, but obviously having surveillance system will deter some people from committing crime.
Will you have an application that a business would fill out to get one of these MSTs, or do they just have to call and you take them on a first come first served basis?
No application, just a request to our team. It could come through the mayor's office, council. It can come through the economic development director. Long as we get the request, it comes to the police department. We'll schedule it and do it in a fair way that we have that deployed at every business.
Okay, thank you.
Council President.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you both to Chief Wong and Tanya for the work you did on the broken window program. As much as I would like to be able to provide this money for a broken window replacement for the businesses, we're really getting to get more bang for our buck with the mobile service trailers. And so for those who aren't real familiar with what we're talking about, when you see those little trailers in the parking lots and they're very tall and they have a little blue light at the top that's blinking, that's somebody is watching that on a camera. And so if you want to feel really safe when you're going into Fred Meyer parking lot, for example, go park right next to that trailer unit. So the closer you are to that, the more you know that somebody's going to be watching that. And I think that over time, the folks that are taking advantage of our businesses are going to recognize that that's not a good place to be when we have one of our mobile service units. So if we have 8, that sounds like we're going to really be able to do something beneficial for our business community, and that's really important. Thank you.
Councilmember Walsh.
Yeah, just a quick question, and thank you once again. A great, thank you for your work. The privately owned MSTs that some of the businesses have, are they tied into the Safe City network, or are they just independent, the businesses?
They're independent.
Would there be a possibility in the future that if the business so desired that they'd be able to be tied into the network?
That's more of an IT question.
I think Thomas is right back there too. So anyway.
Yeah. We use the Vigilon system. I just don't know. I think some could, but Thomas, you want to give it a shot?
You could easily do that.
It's a great question, Councilmember Walsh, and something that we've long wanted to do. We've looked at doing integration not only with other maybe mobile trailers. That's actually relatively new. We've looked at the mom and pop stores. They have, a lot of people have their little surveillance systems. And the technology, it is there. It's not as easy as technically as it sounds like it should be. Certain products are, and they do come at a cost. And so with Vigilon, I think Vigilon is purchased by Motorola. And Motorola owns some other items, and they're purchasing other more cloud-friendly surveillance camera options. And so I think we're going to be looking at maybe in the future, but not right now.
Okay. Would it be practical to suggest to businesses that are considering purchasing their own that they purchase one that is more compatible and easier to integrate?
That's a good question. I think we would want to do a pilot program first before we actually started endorsing that, to make sure if there was a business that really wanted to kind of work with us on that, then it would be something we could probably entertain. But I would want to make sure that we get all the bugs and glitches and gotchas figured out before we kind of market this across our city.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
I guess I'll just chime in. I think this is a great use of the money for protection in this community, and yes, you can do what Mr. Walsh is asking. That's what I do around the U.S., and I can give you the roadmap.
Councilmember Daniel.
Yeah, a couple questions. One, just to verify, will these be monitored, or are they not being monitored?
Generally, it will not be monitored unless we're conducting a special operation, but they can be accessed instantly by the officers in the field, also commanders at the station if something should occur. And there are times we have citizen volunteers who are in our incident command room, in our Safe City room, monitoring what's going on, and they can also radio to officers in the field if they observe something. 24/7, they're not monitored, but it is being recorded, and we retain it for about a week.
Okay. And the second thing was, when we had this brought up in Federac, I had actually mentioned reaching out to like Safeway, one of these companies. Did anybody reach out to talk to these local businesses, see what the response has been when they've implemented it?
So we have reached out. We haven't heard anything back. As soon as we
Okay.
do, we will definitely let you know.
Okay, sweet. And then I actually agree with 2 of the MSTs. I still support the broken window fund. I still think small businesses need to get something back out of this. I understand this equipment is supposed to be used for that, but again, they're going to be put in different locations. And just driving here today down 348th, I just looked at a bunch of wood where the windows are, and I'd love to be able to give some money back to the businesses. So I mean, I still support doing 2 machines and the broken window project. So this is my sense.
All right, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. So the businesses that have their own MSTs can, if a crime occurs in their parking lot, can they give their videos to the city, and are their videos able to be used by the city and in court in case they catch whoever did whatever?
Yes, and quite often, the officers are gathering that video evidence, whether it's an apartment complex or a business. We do that on a regular basis. Even on shoplifting cases, we're getting their video, and we're putting it into our digital evidence.
How many businesses in the city of Federal Way have their own MSTs?
I don't have the exact number. There's quite a few out there. It's crossings, for example, we're using our MST. We put it there for a while, but I've noticed recently that they have their own MST on site. So they decided to lease or, sign a contract with a vendor to provide that service.
Do you know, does a vendor, excuse me, does a vendor monitor their cameras 24/7, or do you know how that works for them?
Some do and some don't, depending on the level of service that you contract. There are ones that are monitored where they literally are watching and they talk to you if they see something that's criminal activity.
So that, going to the maintenance yard and the MST that's at the maintenance yard, we have a company there that monitors the cameras that are already there, is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
So could they also, do they also monitor the MST cameras?
No, it's a different system.
Is there any way that they could monitor those two so that the area is safer and we don't have what occurred happen again?
I don't really think that the company integrating the two system and having the company look at the MST is going to make a huge difference, because it's pretty robust video surveillance system that exists already at the maintenance center.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Walsh, you had your light on? Okay, Councilmember Tran, you have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, based on the conversation that we had today and the conversation that we had at the last meeting in FedRex, I move to approve the use of ARPA funds as outlined with the modification that all funds proposed for use in the window replacement program will instead be used to purchase additional mobile surveillance trailer, MST.
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Councilmember Sepa Dawson? Okay. Councilmember McDaniel? Oh, just getting ready to vote? All right, anybody else that'd like to speak on the matter? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Stephanie? City Clerk?
Councilmember Sefa Dawson. Aye. Councilmember McDaniel.
Nay.
Councilmember Tran.
Aye.
Councilmember Walsh.
Aye.
Councilmember Dovey. Deputy Mayor Honda.
Aye.
Council President Kochmar.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-1.
All right. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, everybody. Item E, North Lake Management District Advisory Committee appointments. Councilmember Dovey.
I'm doing the North, oh, sorry about that. I thought it was Councilmember Walsh. Okay, I'd like to make a motion to move that the following appointments to the North Lake Management District Advisory Committee: Terry Thomas, Lori Sechrist, and Brian Honey.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, congratulations. So those individuals have been appointed. Okay, item F, Steel Lake Management District Advisory Committee members. Councilmember Dovey.
Okay, I move to make the following appointments to the North Lake, excuse me, that should say Steel Lake, Management District Advisory positions. And it's Bruce Myers, Melissa Hamilton, Margaret Rainher, and Jeremy Benson.
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Deputy Mayor?
I would like to thank everyone who applied for those positions. We had more people apply than we had positions available for, so thank you very much for being interested.
All right, anyone else? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, congratulations, those individuals have been appointed unanimously. Okay, now, item G, Diversity Commission appointments. Councilmember Walsh.
I move to make the following appointments to the Diversity Commission: Sadia Abdullah, Chika Aonyeji Aka, to voting positions with a term to expire May 31st, 2025.
Second.
It's been a motion, a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Those appointments are unanimous. Thank you. All right, item H, confirmation of Independent Salary Commission. Council President Kochmar.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I move to make the following confirmations of the Independent Salary Commission as follows: Roger Flygar and Kenny Byrne to voting positions with terms to expire February 28th, 2027, and Gordon Bach to an alternate position with a term to expire February 28th, 2026.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yes.
My question is, council be informed before the salary commission meets? I understand they meet this spring. We, some of us would like to discuss some items with the salary commission, if that's appropriate. If not, who?
It's not.
Who would we-
It's actually a good question. It's an independent salary
Right.
commission.
Right.
So,
So would we discuss things with Vanessa?
well, I guess, Ryan?
Well, I think the best course of action would be to start with Vanessa.
Okay.
And we'll see what the request is.
Okay.
We're trying to insulate the Independent Salary Commission from direct influence from council
That's
as much
fine.
as possible. So,
We usually don't know when they meet. I mean, I've read about it in the newspaper, not knowing that they had met.
right.
But I know there are some requests that council has, and we'd like to make sure that the commission knows that that the council has some requests.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think
and-
we should talk about it with
Okay.
the HR director. Probably, to me, the most, I guess, the safest course of action would be to filter those requests through Vanessa, so she would present them to the commission.
Yeah.
I think that's the best thing.
Thank you.
We could talk
That's what I was planning on doing.
Okay.
There's 3 requests so far, yeah.
Okay. Is that it?
That's it, thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, there's been a motion, a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, those confirmations are unanimous. Item 8, ordinances, first reading, Council Bill 871, ordinance update to indemnification policy.
Mayor,
Oh,
we added
gosh,
an item.
I glossed right over it, yes. Authorization to apply for King County Shelter Grant, item I. That's why David Harrison is here. David, I don't know if your ears were burning, we were talking about you, I was mentioning you, and thank you so much for the work that Fusion does. All right. And for your quick action, the very day that we spoke, that you opened your facility for those that were freezing. So thank you so much.
I want to say thank you too. I'm sure the mayor gets tired of my emails asking, when is the shelter going to open?
You know, I think it's a really good.
He agrees.
No, what I would say is that, you know, it's critically important that we not be, you know, so tied to protocols and criteria that we, you know, as I was driving to that event that we both attended, I kept looking at my temperature in my car on the outside. It was 28 degrees. And I said, it is just far too cold for anybody to be out for any period of time. And so, you know, we can't be so stuck to criteria that and Sarah, you know, and I have had many conversations about this. So I think where we can and where we need to, we're going to activate. And, but while it's been in the 40s and 50s, or 50s today, and the past few days, boy, it's wet. And, you know, it would be miserable to be outside as well. So that's why Sarah is here, and that's what this is about. So with that, how's that for a nice transition? All right, authorization to apply for King County Shelter Grant. Sarah Bridgeford, our Community Services Manager, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor Farrell, Council President Kochmar, Deputy Mayor Honda, and members of the council. Thank you for allowing this item to be added. The policy question before you is, should City Council authorize staff to submit an application to King County for shelter grant funding? This opportunity opened up yesterday. There was a press release through King County and the executive's office regarding this grant funding becoming available. So it's a little bit of a quick turnaround for first consideration, although they are accepting rolling applications. The amount of funding is $5 million. It is through the county's ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act funding, and specifically that is with their coronavirus local fiscal recovery fund. This is not a revenue replacement, so unlike some of the programs that we're running that are all using that lost revenue category, these are going to be true federal dollars. Within this grant application, there are a few priorities that the county has identified. As would probably be expected, the county is prioritizing new or expanded shelter, really looking at capacity in South King County, specifically saying that we don't have adequate shelter capacity in South King County. Additionally, the opportunity did identify that funds could be applied for existing shelter for operations and programmatic support, which is the proposal that's before you this evening. While we don't have a grant application drafted, we do anticipate that that would be submitted probably in time with the next council meeting, which is why we're here tonight. And the existing shelter within the city is the Fusion Family Shelter. That's a 31-room shelter. Fusion does anticipate having a budget gap of about $250,000 in 2024, with small increases in 25 and 26. This opportunity would be a great way to help sustain that shelter and ensure that it has a stronger future. They can seek additional funds using this period to find those funding sources as well. While the full scope of the eligible activities is still unclear, we expect additional information from King County to become available within the next week or so. They should have a full RFP or similar document that is released. The application questions have been released, so we've been able to look at that and identify the priorities. But with the scope of eligible activities, Fusion has identified just a couple other things that as they're operating their shelter, they would look at. I don't think some of those will fit with the King County opportunity based on some conversations today. Fusion had asked about diversion and some other programs that could give families opportunities that avoid the shelter system, but this would actually specifically be for shelter operation. The grant requires no matching funds from the city. It wasn't included within the budget, and we're seeking your authorization this evening. And with that, I would be happy to take any questions.
Sarah, I want to say first, we got this email yesterday. Thank you for being all over this and insisting that this get what they call walked on to this agenda. It hadn't gone through committee, but to take advantage of the timeline, I very much appreciate your diligence and your urgency with this. Councilmember Dovey.
Yeah, thank you for putting this together. Are we going to ask them for 750,000 or $1 million? Based on reading this, it looks like there's a shortfall of $250,000 a year at Fusion. Is that what we're trying to, our first thing we're going to try to do?
Yes, I would actually anticipate that it will be slightly higher. And the reason for that is just costs tend to increase year over year. In the short time that we have had with this, less than 24 hours, and mostly today, David Harrison with Fusion did some quick math. They'll need to work on this a little more, but we would anticipate that we would come in more at about $900,000 to $1 million.
Okay. And that 900,000, how many people will that keep in the system? Because if you have a shortfall, that means you can't give the same amount of services. So how many people will we be able to continue to help? Is there any idea on that?
I think that's well, you might have an answer, but the reality with shelter generally, and then I'll invite David if he has something different to answer, is you need to be whole to operate a shelter.
I understand
Yeah, most of the time it's full-time staff, 24/7. By not having those funds available, they're either having to use the critical reserves that they have for their buildings, including transitional housing, or seeking other kind of funds, which they'll continue to do.
The reason I'm asking the question, if we know that 750,000 to 900,000 keeps everybody whole, shouldn't we be asking for more money so we can help more people, like we heard from the gentleman who talked earlier about the stones in the right-of-way, and the lady who came and said, hey, I give these tents. I mean, if we only ask for what we need to fix the hole that we might have now, shouldn't we be asking more so we can serve more people?
And we definitely could, as a city. I think the constraint with the existing shelter is going to be by the number of rooms in the space. I believe that David has spoken with many, if not all of you, about looking at some kind of shelter expansion, which could be an opportunity if that's something that the city had interest in supporting. Even just the feasibility of such a project is eligible under this application. We would first prioritize that budget gap, but if that expansion was something that you had interest in, this could be an opportunity to do that.
Thank you.
And we are, I think, really disadvantaged in one key element is that the emergency shelter that was supposed to be at Red Lion is not open. And that, down there behind the Denny's along 348th and Enchanted Parkway, and then HTH, Health Through Housing, is not opened either, another King County program. So, once again, Fusion's been very important. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank Sarah for her work on, well, everything she does. I think she's fabulous, and we're lucky to have you here, Sarah. Secondly, will Fusion be able to increase the amount of people that they serve with this type of funding? Or is King County offering this funding so that we can use it at the at the shelter that they're supposed to be opening? Is that their intent? Is that we use it for their shelter that they're supposed to be opening?
No, and I did have a conversation just prior to this meeting, during the special city council meeting, with a King County staff member, Kelly Ryder, who I think many of you know, and she did share that it is the county's intent to continue with the Red Lion, including coming in with a pre-application in January for some of that rehab. So that would be outside of this opportunity. This opportunity would be looking at additional beds throughout South King County, or in some cases, existing shelter beds.
Okay, but will Fusion be able to increase the people that they serve?
Increase, probably not with the operation, not with shoring up that operation gap. But again, if you had interest in looking at something like a feasibility study for doing that expansion, they could look at that. But the initial thought was really kind of fixing that budget gap. Although I think there is interest, again, in that expansion. So if that's something you wanted, you could include that as well.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, thank you. All right,
Well,
Council President.
Thank you. I'm a little bit unclear about how much we can apply for. You're telling me that we can apply for at least 900,000 to $1 million? That's the possibility?
The RFP or full document has actually not been released. The information that's provided does not provide a limit. That could change by the time we get the full packet.
But in order to apply for more, would we have to have some kind of a proposal in mind? That, for example, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and that would include having to run the place as far as, because you can always buy capital, but you need to run it.
Yes, there isn't a requirement for match. I think more would come from this, that what would happen in the county process is there will be this application process up front, and then they will have to do their due diligence on any application to make sure it's eligible and feasible. So they're looking at that 26 timeline that we have with our ARPA funds as well. They want to see that all funds are reasonably expected to be expended and produce projects. Operating funds, as we know, takes a lot of effort as well. There is commitment from our larger funders to see some expansion for homeless services, and this could be part of that. The city is typically not that funder.
Thank you.
All right. Council President Kochmar, do you have a motion with respect to item I?
Well, thank you very much, considering I added it to the agenda. So I move to authorize staff to apply for the King County Shelter Grant funding.
I second.
It's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Sarah, thank you. David and your team, thank you. You literally have saved lives in our community. Thank you. All right, now, first, we're on to item 8. First reading, item A, Council Bill 871, Ordinance Update to Indemnification Policy. We'll have a presentation by Ryan Call, our City Attorney.
Good evening, Mayor, Council President, Deputy Mayor, and members of council. I'm here tonight to present a proposed update to the city's indemnification policy. First, I'll start with the very good question that we got right at the front of the FEDRAC meeting, which was, what does indemnify mean? It's a very lawyer word. It's a fancy word to mean, this is the textbook definition: to secure against potential hurt, loss, damage, to compensate for incurred hurt, loss, or damage. Practically speaking, what it means is, in our context, is we pay to defend people in court, and if there's any judgments against someone individually for something they did while working, for example, a traffic accident or use of force as a police officer, and it was completely lawful and within the scope of their duty, the city will pay those judgments. Or more routinely, our insurer will seek to settle the matter at the insurer's expense. So the reason this came up is, I guess going back, we've had this same policy on the books since the city, I think actually before the city officially stood up. It was 1989, it was the third thing that the newly formed council passed. It's kind of in the pile of stuff that every city has to pass as they're standing their new city up. Every city indemnifies its officials and employees for official acts. It's untenable to expect anyone to work for a municipality that does not do this. So literally every city does indemnify its employees. So that is not what we're here to talk about today. I want to kind of refine this policy to reflect what the actual practice has been for the last 20 years in the city, and also to add a few things that have recently come up. So I'll get to those in a second. So the proposed changes are, first, this is why I looked at this in the first place, which is I want to add a few extra judicial categories of costs that have started to come up. So coroner's inquests are the big one. They've recently become quite expensive. What a coroner's inquest is anytime a police officer uses force and someone dies, we have a pseudo court hearing. It's kind of like a trial. It has a judge, it has someone representing the state, presenting facts, and then there's someone representing the family of the deceased. It's completely non-binding to criminal courts or civilian courts, but as you can imagine, the information that's developed in those hearings is important. And so attorneys abound. There's attorney for the city, there's attorney for each officer. So I wanted to make it clear, we have been paying for these and we need to pay for these. All cities pay for these. But it was a little vague in our current code how we were going to justify that. So, because it's not actually a legal, it's not a tort or a civil law proceeding or a criminal case, it's something else. So, and then certification hearings kind of fall in that same category. Additionally, while I was looking at it, I saw a bunch of things that I think we could improve. One is to include city volunteers in the class of people that are protected. So if a city is an official city, a person is an official city volunteer, meaning a department director or a city official has said, you are working for free for the city, then you have the same protections while you do that work for the city as an employee. Also expand the protection explicitly to include the spouses of those sued. Washington State is what's called a community property state, meaning if a husband or a wife gets sued, for their actions, the entire community property can be implicated, and often the spouse is sued as well. So we've been doing this for as long as the city's existed, but it's not explicit, and I wanted to add that language to it. As it was written, the code was somewhat strange. It made it sound like the city attorney was going to court and personally litigating each one of these civil tort cases, and that's never been the case in the city. We are not staffed for that. A typical civil tort trial will have, I would estimate, about 200 to 300 hours of attorney time associated with it at a minimum. We routinely are in the $60,000 to $80,000 range in defending these cases, just on a case that goes to summary judgment. We have one case, a major construction case that's up to $1 million now. So I say those numbers because that represents time, that those are attorney's hours, and we've never had the staff to do that. So I want to make it clear that, yes, the city attorney hires experts, litigation experts. That's another thing. As a city attorney, we're kind of jack of all trades. We dabble in a little bit of everything, but litigation is a very specialized thing, and we want someone that does it exclusively to defend the city. There's also, the new proposed language also creates a presumption that actions done at work are within the scope of employment, and that the city is going to defend that employee, and that if the mayor or staff thinks that it falls without the defined, basically if it's criminal, or if it's negligent, or if it's these things fraudulent, dishonest, malicious, then we would come to council in those rare circumstances. It's never happened so far that I'm aware of, but we would come to council and say, this act is not something that falls within the scope of employment and should not be indemnified, and we would have council vote at that time. But for every other circumstance, the presumption would be that employees are covered, and that gives employees peace of mind. They don't have to think, there doesn't need to be a vote every single time a lawsuit is filed. So those are the proposed changes. The mayor's recommendation is to adopt the proposed ordinance.
Council, any questions? Okay, thank you, Ryan. Stephanie, are there any public comments?
I do not have anyone signed up, Mayor.
All right. And would the city clerk please read the ordinance title?
Council Bill 871, Ordinance Update to the Indemnification Policy and Ordinance of the City of Federal Way, Washington, relating to indemnification of city officials and employees, amending Federal Revised Code 205030, 205040, 205050, 205060, 205070, 205090, 205100, and 205120.
All right, Councilmember Tran?
Mr. Mayor, I move to forward the proposed ordinance to the January 2nd, 2024 council meeting for second reading and enactment.
Second.
It's been a motion, a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Matter passed unanimously. Thank you, Ryan. Okay, second reading and enactment. Item B, Council Bill 868, Ordinance 2023 Annual Comprehensive Plan Amendments. Would the city clerk please read the ordinance title?
Council Bill 868, Ordinance 2023 Annual Comprehensive Plan Amendments, an ordinance of the City of Federal Way, Washington, amending the Federal Way Comprehensive Plan, the Comprehensive Plan Map and Zoning Map, designating a downtown architectural overlay, changing the Comprehensive Plan designation and zoning of approximately 20 acres located north of South 316th Street between Pete Von Reichbauer Way South and 23rd Avenue South from City Center Frame, CCF, to City Center Core, CCC, and changing the comprehensive plan designation and zoning of 19.05 acres of land located on the north side of South 320th Street, east of I-5, from multifamily RM 2400 to commercial enterprise CE.
All right, Councilmember Toby.
I move approval of the proposed ordinance.
Second.
It's been a motion, a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion, the ordinance passes unanimously. Item C, Council Bill 869, Ordinance, Code Amendments relating to City Center Core and City Center Frame. Would the city clerk please read the ordinance title?
Council Bill 869, Ordinance, Code Amendments relating to City Center Core and City Center Frame. An ordinance of the City of Federal Way, Washington relating to development regulation amendments applicable to the City Center Core, CC-C, and City Center Frame, CC-F, zones and adoption of downtown architectural overlay. Amending Federal Way Revised Code 19-05040, 19-05060, 19-05160, 19-110-080, 19-115-020, 19-115-050, 19-115-060, 19-115-070, 19-115-090, 19-120-030, 19-125-060, 19-190-010, 19-225-010, 19-225-015, 19-225-020, 19-225-030, 19-225-040, 19-225-050, 19-225-055, 19-225-060, 19-225-070, 19-225-075, 19-225-080, 19-225-090, 19-225-100, 19-225-105, 19-225-110, 19-225-120, 19-225-130, 19-225-140, and 19-230-030, adding Federal Revised Code 19-245-020 and 19-110-025, and repealing Federal Revised Code 19-130-150.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Dovey.
I move approval of the proposed ordinance.
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Matter passes unanimously. All right, item D, Council Bill 870, Ordinance, Amendment to Wild Waves Concomitant Development Agreement. Would the city clerk please read the ordinance title?
Council Bill 870, Ordinance Amendments to Wildways Concomitant Development Agreement, an ordinance of the City of Federal Way, Washington, relating to amending the Enchanted Parks Incorporated Concomitant Development Agreement.
Councilmember Dovey.
I move approval of the proposed ordinance.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. I wanted to clarify some things I said 2 weeks ago. I don't support this concomitant agreement because I don't support the warehouses. And I think Wild Waves and Enchanted Village is awesome for Federal Way. And I think Jeff Stock is an upstanding individual who is looking out for the future of his family, like he should, and is planning for the future of his family. I think a hotel there would be great, although I've talked to some homeowners in the area that don't support a hotel there and think that that would not be so awesome. But our job, as a council, is to care for the city and to plan for the future and not just for tomorrow. We don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what will happen in the future. This concomitant agreement goes out to the 2050 something. I'll be almost 100 years old by the time it's over. And I do support Wild Waves. I do hope that Wild Waves grows and is very successful and is around forever. But once this passes, and warehouses are allowed, and it can happen. And I don't think it will happen in the near future, but eventually it could happen. And so therefore, I can't support it. But thank you very much, and I do want to thank Jeff Stock for what he does for our community, because I do think he does great things for our community.
Councilmember Dovey.
Yeah, I would just encourage that we pass this ordinance. Seeing the letter that came in that there's about to do a lease for 30 years and a commitment from the stock, the Wild Waves for the amusement park and continue and invest in our community, become a bigger employment hub, which we need here in Federal Way. And I look forward to redevelopment sometime in the future where we have a hotel that we can be proud of, that people come to and stay longer in Federal Way. So I support this, and I would urge my council members to vote and move forward and, look at it like we're securing the future of Federal Way for the next 30 years. The landowner and the park are being protected, and we're able to guarantee jobs in our city for a very, very long time.
Councilmember McDaniel.
Oh.
Oh, okay. Councilmember Asafa Dawson. Oh, okay, sorry. You guys left your lights on. Okay. There's been a motion and a second. We've had the discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Councilmember Safa Dawson,
Aye.
Councilmember McDaniel,
Aye.
Councilmember Tran,
Aye.
Councilmember Walsh,
Aye.
Councilmember Dovey,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Honda,
Nay.
Council President Kochmar.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-1.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Congratulations. All right. Council reports. We'll start with Councilmember Asafa Dawson.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'd say it's been a great year. I don't have much to report on, but I just wanted to say Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and I look forward to 2024.
Here, here.
Thank you.
Councilmember McDaniel.
It's been an interesting year. I'm actually going to be finishing up a calculus class at Highline next week, so I'm looking forward to having my life back on that one. But I've actually ran into kids who actually work in the city of Federa, the community center, and at the Home Depot, and my instructor actually just got appointed to the Milton City Council. So I look forward to seeing him at some of these events coming up. But just like my colleagues said, Merry Christmas to everybody and Happy Holidays, and I hope to see you guys next year.
All right. Thank you. Councilmember Tran.
I don't have anything except to say thank you to the mayor, council. I think we have really a productive year. Thank you to staff for your continued support. And I wish everyone Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
All right. Thank you. Councilmember Walsh.
Just with ending the year, it's a privilege to work with the fellow council members and the mayor and the staff and with the people of the city of Federal Way. We live in a great place. We really live in a great place. We have a lot to be grateful for here. A Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everyone. Some of you know that music is a big part of my life, singing, and I have the privilege of singing at a concert in Bellevue next Sunday at 4:30 in the afternoon. If anybody'd like to attend, ask me about it. I'll give you an invite. So anyway, and Merry Christmas.
Here, here. Councilmember Dovey.
Well, I'm going to go to the concert on the 10th at 4 o'clock to listen to Councilmember Walsh and take my 97-year-old father-in-law who'll be 98 on the 12th.
Wow.
One of the older citizens of Federal Way. But I want to thank everyone up here at the dais for a great year, and the staff, Keith and your team, for putting up with all the land use things that we did for a long time, and the committee members and the council that have been on our group all year. And again, Merry Christmas to all, and we'll have a great new year in 2024, so thank you.
All right. Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. The council has been really busy this year, and, excuse me, and it's gone by really, really fast. So next year promises to be just as busy because we have downtown, and which is really exciting. You know, it's when we were talking with the Edmonds people, they were talking about their beautiful historic downtown, which we sure don't have that, but we have the ability to make a downtown, and not very many cities get to do that. So that'll be exciting to continue to do that. I wanted to talk about Federal Way Cares for Kids. That's a program that our police department, the fire department, volunteers throughout the city have done. It's to provide toys and things for children for Christmas. It started, you know, over the years, it's evolved into what it is today. And before COVID, it was at Lakota or at the church over there. And parents came in and did shopping for their families, and then volunteers helped wrap gifts, and even food was given out. Well, then COVID happened, and there was still a program, but parents just came by, picked up a sack of toys or whatever. This year, it's going to be back in person for the first time since COVID, and it's at Lakota on Saturday, the 16th. And if you're interested in volunteering, they need volunteers. So you could probably check with the fire department on that. Kevin Crossan would be who I would check with. He's at the fire department. And I just really appreciate what they're doing and helping families. Also, Catherine North, who is one of our senior commission members, has a program at Wildwood Elementary where she works with staff, gets a list of families with young children who are needing some help at holiday time, and provides toys, clothes, and bikes, even laptops if available for those kids who need that. So thank you to Catherine for that. I know we have other programs out there in Federal Way, because Federal Way really is a giving community and really does care for those in our community. So thank you. Also on the 16th, Adopi is presenting their second annual Youth and Young Adult Summit Winter Wonderland. It's at Federal Way High School from 3 to 10 p.m. I went there last year I was there for a couple of hours. I think Lydia Cefadosin was there, and really a neat program. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. That this will be the second time that they're doing that, see how they've grown over the year. And the fire department is doing their Santa, what do they call that? Their Santa.
Parades.
Their what?
Parades?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is next weekend. And so you can go to the fire department website and get all the information on that. That's really fun. Sometimes they come through our neighborhood, and they also take food donations. So look at their schedule. They're doing it 4 nights in Federal Way, and try to catch them. They put a lot of work into it. It's a lot of fun. So happy holidays and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Council President Kochmar.
Thank you. I'd like to say thank you to my colleagues, to the mayor, to our staff. Nothing in our city gets done quickly. It's little pieces, bit by bit by bit. You have taking stock at the end of the year. Our staff works very, very hard. The police work very hard. Your roads are overlaid. Your parks are clean. You do have encampments. We're trying to work on that. You don't have tents on the sidewalks. You don't have graffiti. If there is graffiti, we cover that over right away. We have a wonderful council that works well together. We don't have to agree. You wouldn't want us all to agree. You're healthier if you don't all agree. But what you have is a council that works together, discusses items, comes to an agreeable conclusion, and moves forward. And so you do live in a wonderful city. I hope you realize that. But most of all, I think what's the benefit of our city is that we have people who are willing to step forward and get involved. People are willing to help others. So if you have a neighbor, or if you have extra food at this time of the year, take a toy for Tot to the fire department, take a few cans of food to the food bank, help your neighbor who's a shut-in and doesn't see very many people. So anyway, thank you. Thank you for being who you are, and thank you for allowing us to serve you.
One more thing on the 16th. So if you are bored on the 16th, it's your fault. The Historical Society of Federal Way is doing their holiday open house, and if you've never been to the Heritage House over there by Steel Lake, it's really cool. They're saving our history, and if you've done anything in Federal Way, they probably have a folder on you where they've put information in about what you've done, and so really cool stuff. So if you can support the Historical Society, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Great. All right. Thank you, Council. Great job this evening and all year. Thank you to our wonderful staff, and thank you to the folks that we serve. And thank you very much for coming. We are adjourned.
A Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night.